All right, Councilmember, we are live on YouTube. Apologies to everyone for the delay. You may begin when you are ready.
Good afternoon. I'm Robert White, Council Member at Large and Chair of the Committee on Government Operations and Facilities. Today is Wednesday, January 26, 2022. The time is now 12:16 p.m. and I'm calling to order this performance oversight hearing of the committee. I want to apologize. We're starting a bit late. DC Public Schools are closed today, and I have lost my muscles for figuring out how to balance these things. And also, you may hear Encanto being sung in the background, so heads up. Our hearing today is on several agencies and commissions, including the Office on Women's Policy and Initiatives and the Commission for Women, the Office of Religious Affairs and the Interfaith Council, and the Office of Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Questioning Affairs, and the Advisory Committee to the Office of LGBTQ Affairs. We'll start our hearing today by hearing from public witnesses who have signed up to testify on any of the agencies on today's agenda. After that, we'll hear from the representatives of the Office on Women's Policy and Initiatives and the Commission for Women. The Commission for Women was established in 1978 through the District of Columbia Commission for Women Act of 1978. Today, the Office of Women's Policy and Initiatives serves as the face of the Commission for Women and provides support for its operations. The office's stated mission is to enhance the health and quality of life for all women and their families within the District of Columbia, foster economic opportunities for women by establishing public and private partnerships that improve key issues women face in the district, engage women and girls in civic life by sharing service opportunities and resources that help them lead and excel in their communities, and to empower communities and organizations to advocate for policy and systematic change that help women thrive. The office is small, but a critical agency tasked with conducting studies, reviewing progress, developing and conducting programs in areas like sex discrimination, employment practices, education, and childcare. Also here with us is the chair of the Commission for Women. The commission works alongside the Office of Women's Policy and Initiatives in helping it carry out its shared goal of supporting programs directed toward evaluating and improving the status of women in the district. Commissioners serve as ambassadors for their communities and help shape the programming and initiatives that the office offers for women in the district. I'm interested to hear how the commission has been supporting the office over the past year, as well as its plans for the upcoming year. The second set of agencies we will review today will be the Office of Religious Affairs and the Interfaith Council, or ORA. ORA's mission is to cultivate policies that engage community and faith-based organizations in the creation of citywide programs and initiatives across multiple disciplines. ORA is founded on the credence that all beliefs have a common thread of compassion, concern, and care for our fellow humans. It is on that foundation that the office is committed to increasing effective collaborations between district agencies and the faith community in addressing citywide issues. The Interfaith Council was created as an extension of ORA's mission and priorities. The council advises on various matters, including those that affect the spiritual, faith, and religious well-being of all district residents. Both ORA and the Interfaith Council are important resources through which the government can connect with communities and individual residents that may not participate in government affairs through other forms like ANC meetings, hearings, or policy-focused coalitions. Cultivating these connections allows the government to better understand the needs, concerns, and issues facing residents that we may not otherwise have an opportunity to learn, while relaying information about government resources for those in need, like housing and transportation vouchers, tax guidance, grant opportunities for small businesses, important information about COVID-19 relief, and the vaccination and booster process, and so much more. Both ORA and the Interfaith Council share the priority to address hate and bias related to crimes against district residents, and to this aim, respond with moral clarity and spiritual leadership. ORA and the Interfaith Council have brought religious leaders and worshipers of many different faiths together to learn from each other and about each other, to help dismantle stereotypes and to foster acknowledgement of the basic values that are shared across faiths and communities. The district is home to over 850 religious institutions, the oldest of which was established in 1794. Our religious community is not only an integral part of DC's culture, but it supports many residents today, especially those in need. It is critical that our religious institutions are supported so that they can continue to provide vital support to the well-being of our residents in a way that is irreplaceable. I look forward to understanding ORA and the Interfaith Council's goals for the year, the struggles unique to religious institutions in the district, their unique perspective on residents' needs, and how the government can be a better partner for these communities. The final agencies we will discuss today are the Office of Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Questioning Affairs and its Advisory Committee. As I always like to point out, we in the district are fortunate to have a higher number of LGBTQ residents per capita than any US state. But as in the rest of the country, our LGBTQ residents experience disproportionate rates of homelessness, violence, and other harms, and transphobia and homophobia can intersect with racism and other systems of prejudice in insidious ways. The Office of LGBTQ Affairs serves as a coordinating function within the district government, helping the mayor ensure a whole of government response to the many complex challenges facing our LGBTQ residents. As originally envisioned and set forth in the DC Code, every executive agency is supposed to send a coordinator to meet with the office director every single month. The council has also entrusted the office with distributing housing vouchers and administering various human service grants. A panel of representatives of some of our most compassionate and nimble local organizations, the advisory committee, helps guide the office's important work and is empowered by statute to provide its counsel not only to the district director, to the office director, but also to the mayor herself. Going into this fiscal year, the council increased the office's workload with new vouchers and reports, and this committee provided the office with a list of policy recommendations. At the start of this fiscal year, the office welcomed a new director, Japer Bowles. Committee members will recall that Mr. Bowles was a fixture of our hearings last year in his role as a coordinator of the local LGBTQ budget coalition. So I'm confident that he is deeply familiar with many of the needs we hear from our community. For my part, I'm eager to question Director Bowles about his first few months on the job and to welcome back Dr. Porty of the Advisory Committee to share his well-informed insights as well. Right. We are going to move to our public witnesses. Everyone should have received a copy of the witness list yesterday. I'm going to call those witnesses in order that they appear on the list. When I do, the staff will promote the witness to a panelist so that you can testify. When you're promoted to a panelist, you will drop out of the hearing momentarily and come back in as a panelist. At that time, you'll be able to unmute yourself. Public witnesses will be provided 4 minutes to testify, while advisory neighborhood commissioners will be provided with 5 minutes to testify. We will turn to our list. All right, our first public witness is George Kerr, followed by Fred Hill, who I believe is not with us today, Sharice Crawford, Carlissa Winstead, Yemi Mondragon, and Commissioner Peter Wood. And I think at least one of our witnesses has someone testifying on their behalf. So it will not be a problem. We'll just ask that you introduce yourself when it's your time to testify. Welcome, George Kerr. Very good to see you, and you can begin your testimony when you are ready.
Good afternoon, Council Member. I am George Kerr III, G3 Associates LLC and the LGBTQ Budget Coalition, and a U.S. Navy veteran. The members of the DC LGBTQ Budget Coalition are representatives of LGBTQ and allied organizations that work to advocate for dedicated funding that support LGBTQ residents with a focus on trans, people of color, and low-income residents. Thank you for allowing me to testify as an advocate for approximately 10.8% or more district residents that identify as LGBTQ who are receiving long and short-term services, including support in their home, nursing home, assisted living, and community residence facility. Housing plays a critical role in all community members' health and wellness, including our older adults. Last year, the coalition successfully advocated for critical housing resources for the LGBTQ community, including 20 new housing vouchers for the LGBTQ older adults. This is a vital resource that requires additional support to ensure a timely and less arduous process, which I will expand on later in my testimony. Director Bowles and his staff have been in the community, mobilizing us to have a complicated conversation on the challenges that our LGBTQ faces daily. I continue to serve on the DC Department of Aging and Community Living LGBTQ Task Force. The task force has filed an abundance of research to support the critical role of housing in long-term health and wellness of our LGBTQ seniors. Isolation and housing continue to be the top issue we have found in our community. A recent report commissioned by the AARP New York and SAGE similarly found that older LGBTQ New Yorkers face steeper barriers to health care than their non-LGBT counterparts. That's put them at risk of COVID-19 more acutely, including poor physical and mental, alcohol, tobacco use, HIV, and cancer. The report, which also received support from the AARP Foundation, found that 40% of LGBTQ respondents in their 60s and 70s reported that their health care provider did not know about their sexual orientation. In the FY22 budget, Mayor's Office on LGBTQ Affairs was allotted 20 housing vouchers. These vouchers are for homeless LGBTQ older adults. Ms. Gillian has done a fantastic job of getting the word out to the community. However, the red tape involved in emergency is long and drawn out. The process should take less than the advertised 30 days, for it only adds unnecessary trauma for our homeless seniors. We need to hold DC Housing Authority's part in playing and adding to the red tape. When there is a technical glitch in the process, the whole process comes to a halt. Each case needs to be handled on a case-by-case basis so that we can understand the unique situation. We are continuing to ask for an additional 25 housing vouchers for the Office on LGBTQ Affairs. As a gay man living with HIV for 26 years, I have another concern about older people living with HIV. In this new era, where 70% of people living with HIV will be 50, and already in some major cities, 70% are over 50, and importantly, 30% are over 60. We are the future of HIV. LGBTQ seniors face stigma and discrimination in their daily life, which decreases their access to services for aging, reinforces social isolation, and reduce equal access to senior housing. We are grateful to celebrate the passing of Bill 2337, Care for LGBTQ Seniors and Seniors with HIV Care Amendment Act of 2019. The community needs to hear from the mayor's office and her directors on how they're going to address these community concerns. In the future, we need to add mayor's office on LGBT affairs to the code. They would be invaluable in the process of administering the intent of the law. We continue moving in the right direction to find solutions to address these issues. I want to thank the agency for continued support for our community. We look forward to working closely with the agency and Director Bowles in addressing these concerns. Thank you for your consideration. I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much. Our next witness is Carlissa Winstead. Welcome, good to see you.
Hi, good to see you too.
Thank you. You can begin your testimony when you're ready.
Okay. Good afternoon, Councilmember White and members of the Committee on Government Operations and Facilities. My name is Carlissa Winstead, and I'm the Program Manager here at the LAYC Drop-In Center. I would like to thank the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs for their leadership and advocacy within the LGBTQ community. LAYC has worked with the LGBTQ community for over 50 years, and in the last 4 years, we have been fortunate enough to have received the support of the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs and our commitment to deliver quality services to the community. Since our last testimony, we continue to see significant increases in the LGBTQ community in unemployment, health disparity, hate crimes, and rejection by peers and family members. LAYC is tackling these issues with the support of the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs. In the last year, LAYC provided services to 65 LGBTQ youth, 15 who were housed with LAYC. 91% of youth exited to safe and stable housing. We also provided counseling, intensive case management, and a safe place to spend the day. With the support of the Office of LGBTQ Affairs, we were able to support transgender youth by providing gender-affirming clothing, hygienic items, gender-affirming counseling as well, and like I said, clothing to support them throughout their transition. Despite our efforts, much remains to be done. Steady employment is an area where we find that the homeless LGBTQ community faces issues of inequity, especially those in the transgender community. We have seen firsthand how the stigma that surrounds transgender individuals has affected our youth's ability to become and remain employed. Given how underserved and marginalized this community is, every effort and dollar put towards assisting the LGBTQ community is important in breaking down barriers and leveling the playing field for this population. We ask that you continue to support the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs so they can continue to provide leadership, guidance, and funding across the city to help this population to ensure they have the resources they need to transition to a healthy and self-sufficient adulthood. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our next witness is actually Nora Lynch, I think, testifying on behalf of Yemi Mondragon.
Okay, yeah, great.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to be testifying on behalf of Yemi, our client here at the Drop-In Center. She's originally from Honduras, so I will be saying the testimony in Spanish, but I'll go ahead and translate in English if needed. Oh, we got a translator, great. So I'll go ahead and do it in Spanish. Como soy una chica transgénera.
The interpreter couldn't hear, I'm sorry.
Como soy una chica transgénera.
Since I'm a transgender girl,
Me he sentido muy bien por todo
I have been feeling very well for everything
que han hecho por mí. Mil gracias.
that you have doing for me, and thank you so much. Thousands of thanks for this.
Solo quiero que mi Diosito me las cuiden.
I just want the Lord, my dear God, that will take care of us,
Por ser las mejores personas para mí.
for being the best persons for me.
Quiero agradecerles por lo bueno que se han portado conmigo
I would like to thank you for everything good and kind that you have done for me.
y también quiero agradecerles por ser personas amables conmigo.
And I also want to thank you for always being so kind to me.
Mil gracias.
Thousands of thanks.
Thank you so much for that testimony. Our final public witness is Commissioner Peter Wood. Welcome, Commissioner.
Hi, thanks, Councilmember. I'm Peter Wood. I'm a resident of Ward 1 in Adams Morgan, an advisory neighborhood commissioner for ANC 1C03. Today, I'd like to share some of my experience with the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs and advocate for increased financial and staffing support for this office in the 2023 budget year. So there's a lot of ways to measure it. It's not always easy, but we talk about how DC is per capita the state with the largest or the highest rate of LGBTQ residents, but also outside of the three largest cities, so New York, LA, Chicago, and then also San Francisco, it's likely that DC's LGBTQ population is the largest of all US metro regions, roughly on par with Miami and Dallas for the entire United States. To me, this means at least two things. We've done a good job in DC creating a city where queerness is not only accepted, but lauded, and we have a responsibility to be a national catalyst on LGBTQ affairs. It's particularly appropriate that we discuss the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs alongside these other offices, commissions, and councils today. DC's LGBTQ community spans across all genders, including trans and cisgender women, and anyone who is gender nonconforming. It also incorporates a wide range of religious views, including theists, non-practicing believers, and those who do not believe in a higher power. Community building in a diverse city, as is the purpose of the Office of Community Affairs, is a key part of what makes DC a national leader. We're more than our federal politics, but also hold the potential to show municipal leaders all over how to organize for a fairer, juster world. In my experience as ANC commissioner, a significant amount of this organization has come from the Office of LGBTQ Affairs. For example, of the 7 community advocacy offices in the Mayor's Office of Community Affairs, only 2 have reached out to me directly as commissioner with support in the past year: Office of the Clean City and Office of LGBTQ Affairs. And it was the latter that directed the former to me, or rather, the Office of LGBTQ Affairs is making sure other offices like Clean City are able to do their jobs effectively as well. That's not to disparage other community advocacy offices, but rather to emphasize how LGBTQ Affairs is doing a lot with the little. And in my mind, in Washington, DC, we can do even more with a lot. That means an increased budget and staffing for this office so that the glue that keeps DC's communities together, working through hard times and rejoicing in the good ones, continues to be queer and inspiring. Particularly in the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, I've seen the Office of LGBTQ Affairs make repeated efforts to ensure that residents, businesses, and community groups feel supported by their government rather than alienated and ignored. This is not a coincidence, but a direct result of the expertise the office has doing exactly that: serving the marginalized and building a diverse community of voices. We would be foolish to not do anything other than support that expertise to the fullest. Like many of my ANC colleagues throughout the city, I'm proud to consider myself an ally of the Rainbow Caucus of LGBTQ commissioners. I am also proud to represent so many LGBTQ constituents in Adams Morgan, one of DC's most vibrantly queer neighborhoods. We've shown our resilience in DC in the past year, and I can attest that the Office of LGBTQ Affairs has played a vital role in that. Let's return the favor and ensure they have the resources needed to do their job even more effectively. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank all of our public witnesses. I'm always happy to hear when folks come to say how good a job they think a particular agency is doing, and I certainly think the Office of LGBTQ Affairs has been doing a generally great job. Want to give a shout out to former director Sheila Alexander Reed, who I think was very strong in the position and left some big full shoes for Director Bowles to fill, but I think he was a great person for that job. What I'm hearing from these testimonies, one thing is that we have to keep up this work. Office of LGBTQ Affairs has been proactive. They've worked very well with our committee to make sure we're getting things like housing vouchers, even though to your point, George Kerr, we need to increase the number of vouchers. 20 is good, but the need is much greater. So let me sort of, I think we've established that the Office of LGBTQ Affairs does a good job of serving the community. If I could ask you all, where do you think we could be better in terms of resources that the office provides? Are there any, is there one or two particular places where you think they might be able to do better in the next fiscal year?
I can go ahead. One area I would say is definitely areas where of support and employment, especially for trans people of trans, because I feel like there's still just so much stigma around it, and like locating places of employment have been an issue. I know for our youth here who are trans, they'll get the jobs, but it's just like, I guess, navigating sometimes the legal aspect of things. I guess that might be it, because sometimes a lot of things go on at their places of employment that are just not, there's no way that they're legal, harassment, things like that, but they don't have the supports or financial means to go out and get a lawyer and fight for, you know, wrongful termination and things of that sort. So they'll just quit the job and be unemployed. So I think just areas surrounding employment and legal help in those areas would be amazing if there's anything that can be done, because this is a constant issue that I think we've seen with our trans youth clients.
I appreciate that. I'm positive the agency is watching. We'll push them and work with them on that as well. George Kerr.
Yeah, a couple things come to mind. The Budget Coalition is working on our budget ask for last year and what our new asks are going to be. And we're looking to build on that foundation. It was a good start. The $5 million is really going to help our community. However, there are areas that still need to be focused on. And our Black and women, our transgender community is absolutely the highest priority for us. And also when you're looking at legislation like the Older Americans Act for DC, to include the DC Office on LGBTQ Affairs with that legislation. It's missing, and we heard, I was on a call last night with the Office on Human Rights, and they're going to be doing some things coming up, but it's really key that there's a partnership with the different agencies and the Mayor's Office on LGBTQ Affairs. Director Bowles is really great about reaching out and trying to build these bridges, but we need, as a legislative portion, need to be more accurate in that.
I appreciate it. Commissioner Wood.
Thanks. So two things come to mind. One is from experience, just as commissioner. I remember having a constituent come to me with this, who is, I believe, a transgender woman who was having issues. I mean, also related to the questioning part of LGBTQ, they were, dealing with a lot of that personally, and as related to being a tenant, it seemed like a very difficult scenario because we have really good tenant support services in DC, but a lot of times just kind of one of those gaps, or maybe not a gap, but something that can just be better supported even further is, walking that line of figuring out how to, once you have housing, how to acquire it and know and utilize your rights as a tenant from the perspective of being a part of the LGBT community. Because a lot of times, having that voice directed specifically to people that are in that position can be the difference between feeling alienated and feeling like you have that. And a second thing that also comes to mind is, we have a lot of support in the city. I mean, this is kind of bridging not just the governmental side, but kind of the work we do in tandem with a lot of non-governmental organizations, well, not NGOs, but like religious organizations that are kind of appropriate for today. A lot of them do really good work and are very progressive and do a lot of really important things, but also there are a lot of people, particularly in the LGBT community, who are not religious. And I've heard personally that there are a lot of people who say, this is great. If that's something that aligns with your beliefs, that can be really good. And sometimes people use those resources, but a lot of times, I mean, this comes all these things tie together. Same can be said of domestic violence, same can be said of tenants' rights. A lot of times just being able to know that you don't have to explain or justify your belief system can just make, one less barrier of entry to make it so you can actually address your issues. So in terms of like legislative specificity, I'm not sure where that would go, but at least concerns I've heard come from the community.
I appreciate that. And something I wanted to dig into a little bit more with respect to the housing vouchers, Mr. Kerr, you mentioned red tape in the process and issues with DC Housing Authority. Now, can you talk a bit more about where you see this sort of unnecessary red tape in the process?
Once a person starts to apply for the application, thanks to your office and the Mayor's Office on LGBTQ Affairs for streamlining the application process some. But once the application, then it becomes a large vacuum of unknown. And, I'm hearing too many people from the community, and this is where I'm getting this information, because I am not a housing expert. I just am relaying what the community has relayed to me, that, once they find out that the application has been submitted, then there's a long haul with no communication. And then all of a sudden, they, if they're able to get processed and get a voucher, then everything kind of stops, because DC Housing Authorities thinks, okay, we gave you the voucher, now it's upon you to go find a place to live. And as someone that has experienced homelessness, going out and trying to find a place can be difficult, and particularly if you're LGBTQ. A lot of these housing projects that have for the city want to put us into group homes, but they don't do the work to make sure that it's a safe place for us to be. And personally, I will not go into a situation where I don't know individuals and I don't know how they're going to treat me. And I think that other seniors would feel the same way.
Okay. As folks reach out to you with these concerns, please connect them with the committee and with the Office of LGBTQ Affairs, so we can try to work through these. I do want to make sure there aren't unnecessary hurdles, and I do recognize the challenge when somebody has a housing voucher, finding a place that both you can afford with the voucher and that is affirming is a challenge, and so that's something we're going to have to work through.
Let me mention one other thing, please.
Sure.
And I had a couple call me just before Thanksgiving. They had just recently become homeless and living in a hotel. One of the gentlemen was 70 or 71, the other one was 55. And the vouchers do not work for them because they're a couple. So what is the solution for couples that become homeless? This is why I kind of stress that every case has to be looked at individually per case. We can't just write a blanket order and say, okay, this is going to solve all of our housing, because every story is unique. And that's what we need to be striving for, how to address these unique situations.
Okay. Somewhat related to that, someone recommended to me a month or two ago that we should look at reducing the age at which someone qualifies for one of the senior LGBTQ housing vouchers. And the argument was that LGBTQ seniors or aging LGBTQ people are more likely than others to not have sort of, family and other support networks to support them. And so that it may be wise for us to allow people who aren't technically seniors. I can't remember if we use age 62 or 65, but to lower that age a bit to qualify for the senior housing vouchers. Do any of you all have perspectives on that question?
I can just go ahead and speak again and say that I really support that. And when you're looking at the LGBTQ, you should also be looking with people that are HIV positive. A lot of times, we were told in the early days, you're not going to live to retire. So we didn't plan to retire.
Right.
And so now we're kind of stuck in this limbo going, okay, what am I going to do now? And so discrimination is a real thing within the LGBTQ community. And I was just talking about this the other day, that we at times live through day-to-day trauma. We can be walking down the street, minding our own business, and someone can yell out the word faggot at us. And then we've got to go into fight mode and figure out, okay, do I keep walking? Do I cross the street? What do I have to do to get out of this situation? And this is a real thing for us to have to live on a daily basis. And then we go and try to get housing, and you can't. We don't want you people here. Or what I hear all the time in the older Americans conversation is that, there's none of you in our building, in our wellness center, or in our senior building. And that is just not necessarily true.
Yeah, yeah. I really appreciate that perspective. That's helpful. Commissioner Wood.
Yeah, thanks. So that actually reminds me of something. I mean, it's a little bit personal, but I want to share it. So I had a close family friend that was kind of around this age that we're talking about. And this wasn't in DC, but I still think it's useful to bring up. They're around that age where they're not, at that age for eligibility for these vouchers, but they're still, not in their 30s and 20s. And they're a close family friend. They were housing insecure for a long time. They lived with some of my family for quite a bit, rent-free, in exchange for domestic labor, kind of cleaning up things. Like they had an arrangement, very close part of our family. That was an issue because they didn't have that security. They died by suicide. And this reminds me of a second issue, which is that the closest people to them in their life had no way of being informed of this directly or even being a part of that process, because the only people who had a right to visitation or information was the family who exiled them 20 years prior. So it's a really uncomfortable thing to bring up, and it doesn't seem like a direct correlation, but there is. That can be prevented. The entire thing can be prevented in multiple ways. The first is making so a person has a place to feel safe and happy and have walls around them. And we don't want to respond to the second thing, which is who has rights to visit someone after they've deceased, but it's part of the same conversation. It's not easy, but it's real.
I appreciate it. Certainly can be distressing when you're getting older. You don't have a support system, facing discrimination. Don't know where it's going to be, frankly, as you look for housing, because it's both sort of the place and the neighborhood, and a lot of factors that we have to look at. As Mr. Kerr said, one size doesn't fit all, and so typically our housing vouchers for seniors are sort of strictly for a particular age group, but since one size doesn't fit all, we have to look at this as a unique issue. And so this is something we will work through during this budget, and I appreciate those perspectives. So I want to thank all of you for your testimonies today, for all the work that you do to support the city and our agencies, but also being with us today to continue to push us all in a better direction as we review the performance of our agencies over this past year. So thank you all very much for taking the time, and for Yemi, who was not able to testify in person, but sent her testimony. Thank you very much for that. We are now going to move to our government witnesses. And we will first turn to the Office of Women's Policy and Initiative and the Commission for Women. So I want to welcome Director Jennifer Porter and Chairperson Veronica Nelson. Good afternoon, Director.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for this opportunity to testify. I heard and I'm experiencing the same thing with you with childcare today. I hear you're in Canto, and I'm hoping not to raise you a cocoa melon this afternoon. Hopefully,
cocoa melon is still triggering to me. We after you go through 2 toddlers with this, you're like, all right, enough. Good luck.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate all the luck, and I just want to thank you. I want to thank the members of the committee and thank the members of the public who joined us today and who are watching across our beautiful city on Facebook and YouTube. My name is Jennifer L. Porter.
I'm sorry, Director, I'm sorry to interrupt. Before you start, I want to make sure Veronica is with us and can unmute. I want to put you both under oath before you testify. My apologies. There we are. All right. So it's good to have you with us. It is the practice of this committee to put all of our government witnesses under oath. So I will ask that you raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to provide to the Committee on Government Operations and Facilities is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Wonderful. Well, here's what we're going to do. Ms. Nelson, I think you are under time constraints. Is that correct?
I have about 30 minutes.
Okay, so what we're going to do is you will both testify, starting with Director Porter, but Director Porter, I'm going to start with questions for Commissioner Nelson. Does that work for everyone?
It does. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both. Director Porter, again, without interruption.
Thank you, and apologies for that, Chairman. I'm clearly excited and passionate to share about this work. So again, I'm Jennifer Porter, and I'm the Director of the Mayor's Office on Women's Policy and Initiatives, or MOPI, as our acronym for short. I'm proud to share the outcomes of our initiatives for our fiscal year 2021, and I look forward to sharing with you the outcomes of our year of programming to support and resource the women of our beautiful city. As you know, this time has been challenging for many district residents, and current analysis captures the impact of the public health emergency, has concluded that women have disproportionately borne the economic and health impact of the pandemic. As our aim is always to support district women in their pathways to the middle class and thriving families, as I reflect on the work we've done to support women in our city, I'm proud that we were able to prioritize programming that supported women economically through their careers and supported and empowered their health and wellness. I'm delighted to share the successful outcomes of our goals to resource and activate district women. Mayor Bowser has continued to position us to prioritize women and families in our administration, knowing that a commitment to reach district women and girls and supporting their economic mobility, while supporting their social and emotional wellness, supports the wellness and economic strength of our entire community. The goal of our office has always been first and foremost to support the policies and initiatives that will improve outcomes for women across all 8 wards of our city. Our mission, in conjunction with the DC Commission for Women, provides district women with resources to be equipped to achieve economic equality, access to quality life-saving health services, ensure that all district women have the freedom to live safely and without fear in public and private spaces, and engage with other district women to ensure that residents are made aware of our agency, our sister agencies, and their resources to enhance their lives. To fulfill the goals of the administration, MOPI's mission, our team has worked closely with our members of our DC Commission for Women to identify specific issues affecting women and girls in the district and to develop innovative, relevant, and impactful precision programming and initiatives to help them, ranging from topics of public health to economic empowerment. We're proud of our continued partnerships that have furthered our work and happy to share what we've done. In FY21, MOPI began to prioritize our girls, starting our monthly mentoring series, the Mayor's Girls Leadership Program. We endeavor to support the social and emotional wellness of our girls with leadership from the DC Commission for Women. We hosted monthly Sister Circle sessions, hosting leading women from across district government to share their leadership experiences and tips from their careers with our Sister Circle members at the Excel Academy. Each month, different commissioners shared inspirational quotes and ways that the girls can prioritize themselves and serve in their families and communities to improve our city. From topics like how to start a business with Director Chrissy Whitfield of DSLBD to strong bodies, strong minds, from Associate Director Monique McSween from the Department of Parks and Recreation, sharing both personal and professional tips for success as women, to a very special Women's History Month message from Ms. Simone D. Sanders, who was serving as Communications Director for Vice President Kamala Harris. Our speakers and presenters inspired our girls and continue to work with us to share tips and encouragement for their success. In February of 2021, MOPI launched a new partnership with the Department of Insurance and Securities Banking called Financially Fit DC Women. After discussing the partnership with DISB, we realized the need to support financial literacy resources curated specifically for women. We started off the series with the topic of financial freedom, where to start, sharing the basics of money management, which was launched with great success. We hosted a range of topics uniquely novel to women, from celebrating women with careers in finance to the powerful financial dependence and domestic violence, a special segment which discussed the intersection of financial abuse and domestic violence. That segment featured district resources to support survivors and share prevention efforts from both the domestic violence and financial institutions to support our community learn about the dangers of financial dependence during Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Our evaluation and feedback shared a desire for women to continue to learn about investing. And we're proud to share that we closed out the calendar year of 2021, hosting our December Financially Fit DC Women segment, hosting over 208 district women in our Investing 2.0 segment, with a powerful, fiscally focused speakers, and left with a high demand, resounding request for Investing 3.0, which we look forward to hosting this year in May. MOPI continued our economic empowerment programming in 2022 by hosting our Work Smart Women's Salary Negotiations trainings, a partnership we've been proud of and we have continued to offer virtually this past year. We're excited to host women from across all 8 wards who are seeking critical wage negotiation skills to increase their wages and their promotional potential during this time of economic uncertainty. This year, we had a special segment during and hosted a special panel for Black Women's Equal Pay Day. The curated conversation featured phenomenal women leaders, including Dr. Jarpa Dewuni, who's the director of the new Howard University Center for Women, Gender, and Global Leadership, and Gloria Blackwell, the executive vice president of the American Association of University Women. This profound conversation discussed the inequities and how we can sustain resources to improve the Black pay gap and resources for women to continue to thrive. During Women's History Month, I am so proud to share, I think the last time we were here, we were just about to kick off Women's History Month. But last year, after launching Financially Fit in February of 2021, MOPI was proud to host our biggest celebration of the year, Women's History Month. We included over 25 public events, 14 partnering agencies and community organizations. And Chairman, we hosted over 26,000 residents in the month of March alone. We're proud of our partnerships and our ability to engage this programming for our community. We were able to host a panel centered on women in emergency management. We hosted our popular Women's History 5K in partnership with DPR. And we hosted a special edition of our signature Women's History Month event, Muriel Bowser Presents Washington Women of Excellence. Last year, we honored outstanding sheroes of COVID, and we honored women who have led in our city during the public health emergency. We also hosted in August of 2021, Mayor Bowser's 7th annual Women's Equality Day, and we hosted it at the newly renovated, beautiful Martin Luther King Jr. Library rooftop. And this year's celebration was an opportunity for us to not only celebrate the 101st anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment, but we were able to swear in 9 new MOPI Commission on Women commissioners who were adorned in their suffrage gold and yellow, and they took their oath as the newest ambassadors for women in Washington. I want to share the great outcomes of our programming for COVID-19 and women. We hosted several awareness campaigns and events to promote vaccination across our city, including our Ladies' Night COVID-19 vaccine event in partnership with our commission. We also hosted the Vax for Mom and Vax for Dad campaign around Mother's Day to encourage our residents to get vaccinated and to bring in their families as the city endeavored to reunite for holidays and support each other in a safe way. We are excited to continue our Maternal Mondays segment, which is now 4 years strong, which is our opportunity in partnership with Thrive by 5 and the National Maternal and Infant Health Summit to promote resources for self-care and support for moms. This year, we hosted the first ever Maternal Mondays Live. It was an opportunity for us to engage district moms with our partners, March of Dimes, Fit for Mom DC, and Mary Center. Moms were given self-care resources, recipe books, and heard a panel all about how they can incorporate self-care with their families to support their mental wellness. MOPI's work continues to shine because of our strategic collaborations and partnerships, and we endeavor to continue to find ways to provide precision programming and targets that meet the needs and priorities of district women. In closing, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the committee for your leadership. I, of course, want to thank our outstanding mayor and look forward to the work that you will continue to fulfill with your commitment to women in DC. We appreciate the opportunity to share our accomplishments. This concludes my testimony, and my staff and I are happy to address any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you very much, Director. Ms. Nelson, when you're ready. You're on mute.
There we go. Good morning.
Welcome.
My name is Veronica Nelson, and I have the pleasure of serving as the chair of the District's Commission for Women, sworn in on August 26, 2021. The commission was created by the District Council in 1973, and it was charged with the task to support programs directed toward evaluating and improving the status of women in the District of Columbia by establishing the Commission for Women. Throughout our continued work, the Commission has continued to identify strategies to achieve equality and equity for the residents in the district that identify as women. The Commission for Women consists of 22 women with distinctive backgrounds both professionally and personally, and each woman has a unique ability to advise and uplift women across the district given their range of experiences and expertise from all 8 wards throughout our city. The Commission has the honor of serving at the pleasure of Mayor Bowser, and as such, we appreciate a deep-rooted partnership with the Mayor's Office on Women's Policies and Initiatives in their pursuit of enhancing health and quality of life for all women and their families within the district. We also appreciate our ability to partner with MOPI in fostering economic opportunities for women by establishing public and private partnerships that improve key issues women face in the district, engaging women and girls in civic life by sharing service opportunities and resources that help them lead and excel in their communities, empowering communities and organizations to advocate for policy and systematic change that help women thrive, and connecting women and their families to opportunities and resources within the DC government. In addition to the goals of MOPI, I am really proud to report the successes of the Commission in fiscal year 2021, the goals outlined in our responses. Some highlights include the Excel Academy Sister Circle, which is an opportunity for us to carry out the goal of engaging district girls and youth to promote civic engagement. In each session, commissioners were tasked with creating a special, interactive, and inspirational message and a presentation for the girls and youth that participated. We were excited to engage with and learn from our girls about their needs and ways we can support their bright futures. This included the House of Ruth Makeup Glams. I was proud to continue this annual tradition of supporting women survivors across our city. So this year, we were able to donate glam bags and share cheer and encouragement to the House of Ruth staff. This annual partnership is one that is anticipated by the House of Ruth team, and residents annually look forward to it each year. As well, the Commission was proud to support MOPI's new series this year, the Financially Fit DC Women's Series. Each segment was a great opportunity to invite other community women to learn about the great district resources for financial literacy, and we enjoyed the informative and engaging webinars ourselves. Sharing great resources like these are what our role as women leaders is all about. And each year we have a great opportunity to celebrate outstanding women leaders across the city with the Washington Women of Excellence Awards ceremony. Each year the Commission nominates qualified, outstanding women leaders to celebrate women and elevate their work. This year, we celebrated the sheroes of COVID-19, and the commission was really proud to announce to introduce each nominee and share a bit about them during the public program. Women's Equality Day is our second largest signature event and an opportunity for us to showcase the strides women have made in our community and commit to those efforts moving forward. We were excited to bring on new commission leaders this year as well as share our excitement for the year ahead. This year, the Commission will focus on planning our next Women's Policy Boot Camp, encouraging civic engagement for district women to learn about government leadership as well as ways they can advocate to make our community stronger. I am proud to serve alongside the women who inform the critical work of our city to educate and empower women. I thank Mayor Bowser for entrusting us with this very important work. I also want to thank Director Porter for her great, excellent leadership. Our collective efforts have connected women to critical resources, mentored our girls, and have celebrated amazing women making impact across our city. We are proud to share our work for this year, and we look forward to continuing our efforts to empower DC women. In conclusion, I want to thank MOPI and the Committee on Government Operations for their leadership and guidance. The oversight process is critical to a successful government that works for women, and I'm grateful to share the accomplishments of the Commission as well as our collaboration with MOPI. I'm happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Thank you very much, Director Porter and Chairwoman Nelson. As I said, I'm going to start with questions for Chairwoman Nelson and make sure we get you out of here on time. Do want to congratulate you first on your swearing in as the commission's chair. So congratulations on that. How has your onboarding experience been so far?
Oh, very pleasant. It's actually was quite nice. We came on, we were appointed and immediately into the role of getting things started. So it was quite nice. Of course, with the direction of Director Porter, she helps to make sure that all of that goes very smoothly for us. So it was good. Thank you.
Wonderful. And this is a safe space. So if you need to criticize Director Porter, you can feel free to do it here. Let me ask you, what have you learned so far about how the commission operates?
Yeah, I really learned that the commission is truly focused on its missions, that it's not just a slogan, that the work is hard, it's meaningful, it's impactful, that they care, there's true caring, and it makes me proud to be a part and associated with it. It lets me know that the mayor's money, time, and attention to this particular office is really executing the vision, and I see directly the impact on our women and children, and so I think that's just been made, I would say, clear, more obvious to me. That's what I've learned.
Okay. And you noted in your testimony that part of your role is empowering the community to advocate for policy and systemic changes that help women thrive. Can you describe what policies or systematic changes you want to see for the city to better support women?
There are a couple that we've been talking about as the commission, and I think the policy on equal pay has been at the forefront of our conversations. We've talked about gun violence. With the equal pay, I'll go back to that. Of course, we've worked a lot with the Smart Money and financially fit DC to help insofar as increase the awareness. So I think just becoming more aware and then understanding where the gaps are can help to inform the policy. And so I would say those two things come to mind.
All right. You also mentioned in your testimony that you helped celebrate the heroes of COVID-19 this year. Who were some of the women you recognize, and how'd that event go?
You know, I should know those names. Director Porter, can you help me with that?
Happy to. We were excited to honor a couple of women across the DC that are have been sheroes. Kathy Hollinger, who has just been a rock star with the Restaurant Association and helping women thrive. We also were able to honor, we gave citations for public leaders as well as our private leaders. We were able to honor our president of our DC Hospital Association. We were also able to honor Ms. Tiffany Rose, who's leading in not only education, and I should have this list present as well, but we were also happy. We knew that as we were honoring our women leaders, we could not move forward and take the opportunity to help and shed light on our district government leaders. And so we were happy to honor our director of health with a mayoral citation, as well as Ms. Christy Whitfield, who's been leading and helping our businesses to thrive.
Okay, I appreciate it. And, you know, I didn't even think about the fact that you might not memorize like all these names, not to mention sort of COVID braid. So apologies.
Well, what it is we are going through, the commissions are nominating this year's. And so we have so many names and it's just like, wait, this year, last year. Yeah. So sorry about that.
No problem. No problem. Chairwoman, one of the commission's goals is to plan the next Women's Policy Boot Camp. So can you talk a little bit about that program in more detail?
Yes, we are excited about that planning. So we hope to have the program be, or the boot camp be, in 3 parts this year. And one part will focus on running for office. Another part will focus on just advocacy in the district, as well as just learning about all of the opportunities to legislate or to be engaged in the district. And so we have tried to figure out different businesses that we can partnership with. And so I believe Kaiser Permanente is one that we will reach out to, because throughout the boot camp, we would like to have little like snippets of education about health, for example. And so in the past, they have partnered with us to offer good swag bags, as well as good information about just self-care and things of that nature. And so we have a rough outline of the program of what that will consist of for this year. And we're continuing to work with that planning to identify the actual, honestly, we're trying to figure out if we could have this as a in-person event coming up, or does it have to be a virtual event? So that's kind of been some of our discussion. What do we do if it's virtual? We want to ensure that it's super interactive and collaborative, and just thinking outside of the box on how we can keep everyone engaged if it's virtual. If it's in person, then this is of course a little different focus. And so that's kind of where we are in the process now.
Okay. I'm excited to see that unfold, and certainly if there's any way the committee can be helpful or supportive, please let us know. Yeah. And I know that you all have now 3 subcommittees: a subcommittee on health and human services and public safety, a subcommittee on education, labor, and training, and a subcommittee on policy and legislative initiatives. How do the subcommittees function?
So they function in that the programming that the mayor's office of MOPI is doing, we have kind of slotted those programs under each of those committees. And what that allows us as a commission to do is to understand, most importantly, how we can support the programming. So for example, the policy boot camp falls under the policy and legislative committee. And so that particular committee is going to be responsible for the agenda, trying to figure out the location, the speakers, the whole program. So it will be similarly actually a little different for some of the other programs. So let's say for the the Financially Fit or the Woman Well Wednesday programs that are going to be happening, we might need speakers. And so the committee members will be responsible for helping to identify speakers, helping to identify topics of discussion, things of that nature. So the support is to provide whatever is needed that we can help the programming be more successful. Of course, also I should say this: a huge support for all of the commissioners for any committee is to widely circulate through social media the program so that we ensure that it is reaching everyone in the district as well.
Right. And so I think my next question, you 2 questions ago gave me a little bit of insight, but I did want to know if the commission expects to hold all of its FY22 meetings virtually. Do you know what your plan is at this point?
I think we're following the guidance of the district. I think so. If the district is open, we're meeting in person. If the district is not, then we're meeting virtually. So,
Okay.
so far this year, of course, we've been meeting virtually. Our next meeting, which is next in February here, we will be meeting virtually. But in the future, I think our thought is as soon as we can meet in person, we will.
Okay. And in the pre-hearing questions, you sent the committee a list of research topics that you all believe could help improve conditions for women. How does the commission plan to pursue or research those various topics?
I'm looking at that here.
And this was question 20 in the pre-hearing questions.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think in regards to insofar as an actual study, I'm not for certain on that. Director Porter might need to speak up there, but I do know that some of these topics were discussed insofar as the policy boot camp, and I think that we would just do any kind of research that we could to help support insofar as what the type of speakers we would have. So, for example, if there's a conversation about glass ceilings in the workplace, we want to get speakers that and presenters that represent that based on whatever the need may be. And so I think that will be by canvassing the commissioners and their reach, their networks to understand it. But insofar as an official study, I don't know, Director Porter, do you have more to add there?
Sure, and that's exactly right. On the MOPI side, one of the things that we lean on and depend on the commission for is learning opportunities of growth and what we need to know to inform the programming that we push out to the community. So if we want to learn more about the gender pay gap as it pertains to Black women, bringing in experts like we did for the panel on Black Women's Equal Pay Day, or learning more, to her point about the boot camp, learning more about occupational wellness for women and wellness in the workplace and how women can thrive socially, emotionally. And so being able to bring in speakers. But on the report side, one of the things that MOPI has been doing, and in particular with our partners at the Office of Victim Services and Justice Grants, is working with some of those bodies that are already doing the reporting and being able to infuse that work into our programming, whether it be the Health Equity Report or some of the reporting of the Domestic Violence Fatality Review Board, learning about things like the intersection between domestic violence and financial dependence, and the importance for us to push out those resources.
Thank you for that. Chairwoman Nelson, how has meeting attendance been in the over the past year or so?
Yeah, we've had a little struggle with meeting attendance, as you might see from my answer to the question with the number of attendees at each of the meetings. And we're aware of that. We're on top of it. It's not been as robust as we'd like it to be. And so what we've started doing, and actually I should say continue doing, is to reach out to the commissioners, send reminders, poll them to ensure that the meeting date and time is a good one for everyone, and then just follow up with them closer again to the meeting to say, hey, you need to dial in.
Yeah.
And so I think that unfortunately we did maybe suffer a little bit of not being as connected because we are virtual. And so we are aware and working to just provide more reminders to ensure that they are attending as they need be. And of course, we know that there are the requirements that they need to attend, so many to remain
Right.
commissioners. So we don't want to be so heavy-handed right off the bat, but we'll gently and politely, prod. But if need be, we'll be more firm in future messages.
Okay, I appreciate it. And last question. I think there are 6 vacancies on the commission. When do you expect to have those filled?
Yeah, we were just speaking about that actually, and we actually know of a few. We have had plenty who've applied, and sometimes we like to exercise some discernment in making the selection, and so we do have a few others in the pipeline that will be applying, and we are aware. So I think I know of at least 3 that I know who will be applying, and so we'll continue to canvass the current commissioners and encourage them to suggest others as well to apply.
Okay. Chairwoman Nelson, I want to thank you very much for the work that you're doing and for taking the time to be with us today. I do want to be respectful of your time. So those are all the questions we have. Is there anything we missed that you want to add for the record?
No, well, I do thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. Again, I am very, very proud of being a part of the team that is here to help the district's women and children, because it is really important work, and the Office of MOPI, they do a phenomenal job. Just listening to Director Porter's testimony makes me tired. She's tirelessly doing a lot of programming and all kinds of good things. And it's a good relationship and partnership to have. And just thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Well, thank you again for being with us. And Director Porter, let's turn to some questions for you. I know you gave us some stats in your testimony about attendance at some of your events in fiscal year 21. How many girls took part in the Mayor's Girls Leadership Program in FY21?
Sure, I'm so glad you asked. And let me pull up that information. We had a total of 220 girls that were engaged. And we had an attendance of about 30 girls on average on a monthly engagement. And if I can qualify one of the previous questions for the commission's recruitment, we have been working very strategically to make sure that there's representation from across all 8 wards. And so when Commissioner Nelson mentions that there's discretion in the nominations, we want to make sure that, while we love, our neighbors and friends from certain wards, we want to make sure that there is equity across all 8 wards. So we are so grateful to the commissioners who are working hard to make those nominations. And again, we want to make sure, because they advise, as you see, they advise all of our work. We want to make sure that that we're hearing from and having that feedback loop across all 8 wards. So back to our girls. Yes, so we engaged 220 girls with over 14 partners and also 2 additional celebratory events.
Okay. And you also mentioned in your testimony that you launched in 2021 a program in partnership with Department of Insurance and Banking, DISB. Yeah. How many participants did that series have?
Sure. And I can get that information for you as well. I think we were so proud because it was a new series, and so it was building. I think the first time we had 50 participants, and it grew. And I think let me actually get the added the number of all of the segments
Okay.
and get that to you. But we were really proud at the end of the year, as I shared in the testimony, to end with 208 women. And so as a new series that we, again, were hearing feedback that there was a desire for this, we tweaked it, we changed speakers and really heard that feedback. So to end the year with 208, starting with around 50, we were really, really excited and looking forward to it growing. But my team is working on getting that total number for you now.
Okay. And were those in person or virtual?
Those are all virtual. Those are virtual events. And to be honest with you, I think, and we've kind of created this wonderful community of fiscally focused women, as we call them. But personal finance is something that can be so personal, and it can be embarrassing, it can be confusing. And what we're finding is that in this virtual space, in the Zoom space, people can ask questions like, hi, I'm getting divorced. I want to know about, how to decouple assets. Hi, I'm looking, to retire, and being able to have that space where we can, and we see in the chat when we're like, I have the same question. Whereas in person, you may get those questions, but you also may not, right? Because there's that level of transparency. And so again, we're learning and we're using the feedback from surveys to really improve it.
Yeah.
But I think this year we may pilot some in person, but I think that space of virtual is really where we found our niche.
That makes sense. For the office's Work Smart programming that you mentioned in your testimony, how many women participated in that program?
Sure, and I can get that number for you as well. I think the average, pulling this up now. I can get that number to you as well.
I appreciate it. And is there for the Work Smart program, is there a particular industry that the office focuses on for that series?
No, it's across all 8 wards. And I think, again, last year we piloted the special segment for Black Women's Equal Pay Day. And I think it was great because that conversation allowed for us to have sort of a nuanced conversation. And so this year we're looking to partner with our Department of Employment Services, and we're really excited about that partnership to continue that, not necessarily by segment, but looking to do something around Latino Women's Equal Pay Day, and really kind of target these conversations around not just the training to help women learn how to negotiate higher pay, but talking about some of the inequities that lead to that.
And do you tend to see more women from the public sector or private sector for this series?
For Work Smart. So again, just to follow up with Commissioner Nelson, we have a distribution of over thousands of women, but our commissioners are great because they are able to help us to push it out across LA wards and see where the need is. I think one of the things that's important to just kind of reflect on this past year is we're talking about, in public discourse, this great resignation. There are younger women, millennial women, who are looking for flexibility in work, and they're looking for opportunities to telework. And so we see a lot of women who are looking to negotiate, again, that occupational wellness. We think of occupational wellness, we think of like safety and wires, but occupational wellness also includes, concepts around social and emotional safety, right? Pay equity, flexibility. And so I think we're seeing a younger group that is engaged in the seeking employment, but the recruitment is across all 8 wards and with our commissioners as well. So we see a mix.
Okay. How do you do outreach for the various events to participate, to generate participation from across the city?
Sure. So we do outreach a couple of ways. Obviously, in a virtual space, it's important for us to have community leaders, such as our commission, but also working with our sister agencies like DSB, like DC Health, like the Department of Small and Local Business Development, who have outfits and resources that are manned on the ground, that they're able to push out these resources to women across the city. We also have great partnerships with our sister MOCA agencies because we know women are queer, women are veterans, and so they're able to also push out. But we also liaise with and support women's organizations across the city, whether it's sororities, women's civic organizations, to be able to also, again, with precision, be able to reach women who need the programming. And lastly, I'll share our MOCers, the Mayor's Outreach Specialists, who are our eyes and ears and who do a great job of helping not just push out, but also feedback and saying, hey, Director Porter, can we offer that program a little later next time? Some of the moms are getting off work and they need to pick up their kids. So we really appreciate our outreach partners, but also that feedback to help make our programming more reflective and resilient to be able to help women.
And I know you all sort of, chipped in to help out with getting people vaccinated through your outreach efforts. Did you track how many people the office helped get vaccinated?
So, and that's a little difficult because most of those outreach efforts, while we have numbers on the outreach, it's not solely MOPI that's doing the outreach. So it's not necessarily attributed specifically to us, which is part of the beauty as an office that has 3 FTEs to be able to work with the entire MOCA sister agencies, as well as the entire executive office of the mayor to lean in and amplifies our reach. But I'm happy to follow back up and get some information on those that were vaccinated.
Okay, I appreciate it. The health and wellness programming like Maternal Mondays and Well Women Wednesday, those series, what does the office learn through those programs about what additional support women and mothers in the district need?
Sure, I think women need for us to honestly to identify ways that we can activate them. We've learned that women know the barriers that exist, and they want our support to reduce those barriers, right? And so the things that we learned this year, particularly from Maternal Mondays, and we did the initial, we did our first ever Maternal Mondays live. So much of the response was, wow, just having this space of moms and to share, and it's so critical for us during this time. So opportunities like the Maternal and Infant Health Summit, and opportunities for feedback with the Maternal Monday series are really showing us childcare is super important, self-care, and not just self-care as a concept, but how do we incorporate self-care into our home? Really practical top 10 tips, being able to do that, and just being able to address things that are also important when we talk about maternal health. There's an equity piece, and so not just access to childcare, but access to quality childcare, right? The balance at work and the occupational wellness that we talked about, which are really critical. So I think also the nuances of motherhood that we're learning about that moms need resources for, like kids with food sensitivities, kids with special learning requirements, and being able to create that community where moms can learn and moms can kind of feed off of each other. So I think we're continuing to learn, but I think one of the greatest things that we've learned is that moms really do need that space.
Yeah. I read that your 2021 salary negotiation workshops were held virtually and were accessible citywide. What does it mean that the program was accessible citywide?
So it means that everyone across the district, and not just women, and while it is targeted towards women, and while we want to push for women's equity, is open, whether you are a government employee, whether you're a district resident. And also, honestly, if you're, our priority is district residents, but if there's space open, if you're working in the district, being able to continue to push for pay equity across the board is important. And not just for women, because it's important to know that we need allies and we need those that are in leadership to be able to support it. So citywide is just our way of saying, while this is something that is not necessarily in our strategic plan. When we have them in person, we were strategic that across all 8 wards, Ward 8 we're coming, Ward 5 we're coming, Ward 4 we're coming. In the virtual space, we're opening it up across wards and to everyone.
Okay. What about though folks who don't have access to a computer or internet? How are they able to participate these days?
So across MOPI programs or specifically with the WorkSmart negotiation?
For the agency across the board.
Sure. That's an area of growth as we transition, as you mentioned, Commissioner, as the Commissioner mentioned, really advising us on the kind of the uptake and openness for residents to say, okay, do we feel safe? Do we want to have programs in person? And so I think accessibility to our programs, last year we started having more public programs, our program at DC Public Libraries, our vaccination events, as well as our Maternal Mondays Live. Our points of access in person, and again, those are things that are targeted specifically with the input from, specific wards. But I think, one of the things, if people don't have, internet access, we're able to continue to liaise and triage them to sister agencies like DSLBD, that's at the library every Wednesday, helping business owners and helping to navigate them to great resources like DC Health. But it's an area of growth, and we're looking to, just get feedback and uptake. We hosted, I think we hosted one event where we had one resident show up and we were like, okay, let's see how we can shift. And it's been a learning opportunity, but we're looking forward to, again, having the benefit of having our commission and our partners to really help us to make those decisions.
Okay. Well, one of the questions I asked about in the pre-hearing questions was the office's website. What's the expected timeline to have the website updated and reflecting the offices and the commission's efforts in programming?
Yes, and thank you for that question. We have gone through a website collapse, and so one of the feedback that the MOCA office got was that there's a website here for women, there's a website here for veterans, there's a website here for our queer community. And so you can go to the MOCA website, all of our websites are collapsed. And so during that collapse, we're updating and working with MOCA leadership to make sure that if you want to see events, you have the opportunity to see all of the events. And so if you want to search for women's events, you can do that. And so we're working with Octo to update to make sure that you can truly search and see, women's events, and really be able to see, again, recordings of past events if you can't make it, or, if time doesn't persist. So to answer your question about timeline, it's an ongoing updates, and we're working with them. I think just last week we uploaded some new content of the Financially Fit series, the December segments. On a monthly basis, we'll be continuing to send content to update it.
Okay, I wasn't.
It's shifting.
Okay, I hope it shifts quickly. I wasn't able to find any events on the website, which I think is unfortunate, because people will be looking for those. Maybe there's something I needed to do differently. The collapse, this is just one person's opinion. The collapse may make sense internally. I'm not sure if it makes sense externally. I think, maybe someone who is looking for events you're doing might be interested about events other outreach agencies are doing, but they went to your website for a reason, to find something, and I think we want to make sure they can find it. But I also know that you are not like the technical expert here, so it takes sort of work in partnerships. So I'll push the rest of the agencies on that as well.
And thank you for that feedback. And I look forward to sharing that up the chain. But I do want for our residents who are watching to know at DC MOPI on all social media network, social media outlets, you can definitely see our events and follow us on Eventbrite for the links to our upcoming pages. But we definitely look forward to continue to strengthen the website.
And you have a partnership now with Washington Spirit, is that right?
So we partnered for an event, yes, and we are, there are, yes. So we partnered for an event, and there are upcoming and ongoing partnerships in support of our national champion winning Washington Spirit, absolutely. So we were excited to partner with them last year for our Pink Health Festival, our breast cancer awareness event. And obviously this year is a significant and historic year for women, particularly women in sports. And we look forward to engaging all of our women's professional sports as we commemorate the 50th anniversary of Title IX.
Yeah. Well, that'll be interesting. Good thing to celebrate. And a lot of our women's sports teams have been doing really well in recent years. So yeah. Director, those are all the questions I have for you. Is there anything that we missed that you think is important to add for the record?
Let me check my notes. I always have a shameless plug for our upcoming programs. So I would love to share upcoming on February 7th, our Maternal Mondays launch for 2022. We're doing a special Black History Month edition for February, and the title is Sharing the Herstory of Black Health. So the theme of Black History Month this year is health and wellness, and we look forward to having a really exciting conversation. And the next Work Smart wage negotiation training is actually February 22nd. So looking forward to folks joining us. It's a new year. Folks are looking for a new job or, those tools and tips. I definitely want to share that. But beyond that, I'm really proud of our work. And I just thank you, even for the suggestions and the challenges. I think I have great ideas. My team has great ideas, but we want to make sure that our office and our government truly works and is reflective of women. And so opportunities to get this feedback, I don't take it lightly, and I appreciate it. And I thank the commission for always challenging us with new ideas and pushing us. So we look forward to an amazing year. And we hope to host you again this year for Women's History Month for our 5K and our additional events. So thanks.
I look forward to it. Well, thank you to you and your team for the work that you all are doing. I truly appreciate it, and I know many people do as well. We will now welcome our second panel of government witnesses with Reverend Thomas Bowen, who, among other things, is the Director of the Office of Religious Affairs, to testify regarding ORA and from the Interfaith Council, Vice Chair, Reverend Dr. Christopher Zacharias. All right, Director Bowen and Vice Chair Zacharias, welcome to you both. Glad to have you with us today. It is the practice of this committee to put our government witnesses under oath, even when they are people of the cloth. So I will ask that you raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to provide to the committee on government operations and facilities is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
It is.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both again for being with us. And Director Bowen, we will start with you. You can begin your testimony when you're ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman White, members of the Committee on Government Operations and Facilities, staff, and members of the public. My name is Reverend Thomas L. Bowen, and I am here as the Director of African American Strategic Engagement in the Executive Office of Mayor Muriel Bowser. In this role, I oversee 2 offices and 3 commissions: the Enhanced Mayor's Office on African American Affairs, the Mayor's Office of Religious Affairs, the Commission on Father, Men, and Boys, the Commission on African American Affairs, and the Mayor's Interfaith Council. I want to thank Mayor Bowser for placing this trust in me. It is an honor to lead the Mayor's African American community engagement, focused on DC hope, health, opportunity, prosperity, and equity, and to lead the Mayor's efforts in ensuring that faith-based organizations, people of faith and nuns, help us to support and protect our DC values. On January 13th, I appeared before the Committee on Recreation, Libraries, and Youth Affairs to discuss the accomplishments and activities of the Mayor's Office on African American Affairs and the Commission on Fallen Men and Boys during fiscal year 2021. Today, I'm here to discuss with you the great work of the Mayor's Office of Religious Affairs and the Mayor's Interfaith Council for the same period, FY 2021. COVID-19 is still with us, and the faith community continues to adjust to meet the challenges of this reality. The challenge to not only find ways to worship and practice their faith safely, but to also continue their work of addressing and meeting the needs of the most vulnerable members of our community. My office continues to partner with the faith community in this regard. In this regard, we are on common ground. For Mayor Bowser is clear in her determination to ensure that we get through this pandemic together, and committed to making sure that our economic prosperity is inclusive and equitable, and that there are pathways to the middle class for everyone in the District of Columbia across all 8 wards. For these and many more reasons, I'm excited for the opportunity to discuss MOORE's operations and performance, as well as my plans for the agency over the next fiscal year. I am very proud of the work that we have been engaged in, and I'm looking forward to even greater success in the coming year. The Mayor's Office of Religious Affairs and the Mayor's Interfaith Council are working to make sure that we fight for the most vulnerable members of our city. During FY 21, we were able to accomplish that charge in 3 key areas: collaborate with District of Columbia government agencies and the faith community, particularly in the creation and preservation of affordable housing, protecting DC values by reaching out and showing compassion, concern, and care for our fellow residents, and informing and engaging the faith community around issues of importance to all residents. Mayor Bowser's fiscal year 2021 budget reflected our deep commitment to DC values by making investments that will provide all residents of the District of Columbia with the opportunity to succeed. We remain focused each day on creating pathways to the middle class by investing in education, affordable housing, infrastructure, public safety, and people. The Mayor's Office of Religious Affairs provides constituent services and information to the faith community through programmatic activities and outreach materials, and serves as liaison between the mayor, religious community, and district government agencies. We enlist members of the faith community to work with and participate in our engagement efforts, service projects, mission work, and philanthropic efforts on critical community needs aligned with the mayor's priorities, including affordable housing, ending homelessness, youth programs, and services. We also attend in-person and virtual community and faith partner meetings, activities, and programs. MOORE continues to work with the Department of Housing and Community Development on recruiting and assisting faith-based institutions that are trying to provide affordable housing to residents in our city. We have been able to identify and work with faith-based organizations that own property and encourage them to develop their existing resources into affordable housing. Thanks to Mayor Bowser's unprecedented funding commitment of $100 million to the Housing Production Trust Fund each year, more funding is available to support affordable housing projects by faith-based institutions. Since 2015, Mayor Bowser has invested $1 billion into the fund, including $400 million this fiscal year. We will continue to encourage faith-based organizations to engage in the development of properties for the purpose of creating additional affordable housing, to ensure that the District of Columbia includes residents from all income levels, to provide information on available resources, and to explore ways to help them overcome obstacles to their development efforts. The Mayor's Office of Religious Affairs has been vigilant in its efforts to stand up for and protect DC values, particularly as it relates to hate crimes and bias-related crimes. We have, alongside the Office of Human Rights, the Metropolitan Police Department, and the Homeland Security and Emergency Management Agency, responded to incidents of hate and bias in our city, and to give support whenever the need arises, as was the case recently in the wake of the hostage crisis at Congregation Beth Israel in Colleyville, Texas. We, along with MPD and HZEMA, reached out to local synagogues and leaders in the Jewish community. Rabbi Charles Citron Walker stated that he has credited the security training that they received for their survival and has been encouraging congregations and religious groups to participate in active shooter courses. We have been active in offering free active shooter training to houses of worship. During FY21, we helped to develop the Understanding Targeted Violence and Terrorism Prevention course, which seeks to train community partners and stakeholders on the indicators associated with targeted violence and terrorism to enhance prevention efforts. The course was released in October and is available online. Resources like these are the reason that Mayor Bowser tasked my office and HZEMA with creating the Interfaith Preparedness Advisory Group. We do not work alone. We benefit from the tireless work of the Mayor's Interfaith Council, a diverse group of faith leaders who help us with all our efforts. The MIC has been a leader in discussing the issue of homelessness in our city and the need for all of our citizens to help address the needs of some of the most vulnerable members in our community as we continue to make sure that the economic prosperity that our city is experiencing is inclusive. They are intentional in their effort to represent the oppressed and the underserved, and too often overlooked. I am grateful for their tireless work and support. And now we will also be able to take advantage of the enhanced Mayor's Office on African American Affairs. I am very proud of our faith community and the work that the Mayor's Office of Religious Affairs is doing. As I was recently told by one of our faith leaders, Washington, D.C. has become the interfaith capital, and we all should be proud. I am aware of the challenges that the faith community in Washington has faced and is facing. There is a future for faith in the community here in Washington, D.C., because there is still a needed role. I am convinced that with Mayor Bowser's leadership, we will continue to not only address them, but meet them. I look forward to the challenges ahead, and I have every confidence that we will continue to build upon our success. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my testimony. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I look forward to answering any questions from the committee.
Thank you very much, Director. Vice Chair Zacharias, when you are ready, we welcome your testimony.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Councilman White and members of the Committee on Government Operations and Facilities. My name is the Reverend Dr. Christopher Zacharias, and I have the pleasure of serving as Vice Chair of the Mayor's Interfaith Council, as well as the pastor of John Wesley AME Zion Church, located on 1615 14th Street Northwest here in Washington, D.C. The MIC was created in 2011 by Mayor's Order 2011-110, tasking the council to advise the Mayor of the District of Columbia, the Mayor's Director for Religious Affairs, and the Mayor's Cabinet on various matters, especially and including those that affect the spiritual, faith, and religious well-being of all residents of the District of Columbia. Since its inception, it has served as a vital ecumenical group that provides the perspective of the district's many diverse faith communities. Currently, the council has 30 members drawn from Christian, Jewish, Muslims, and other spiritual backgrounds. The desire to serve the district's most vulnerable among us give us our mission and our faith, and it has been a privilege to serve alongside the unique body of individuals. The current chair of the MIC is the Reverend Dr. Yolanda Pierce, Dean of the Howard University School of Divinity, who unfortunately could not participate in today's hearing due to a previously scheduled meeting with the Howard Board of Trustees. As the pandemic rolls on, we continue to focus on the opportunities to serve, which some see as challenges, and these times are difficult for all of us, especially the most vulnerable members of our communities. But they are not impossible. I and the members of MIC still believe, as Mayor Bowser reminds us, that we can get through this together. When the public health emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic hit our city, many of our leaders, services had to quickly adapt in ways unimaginable before, shrinking in-person congregational sizes, moving worship online, bolstering our charitable work in the community were some of the ways that MIC was able to counsel and guide our constituent communities to prevent the spread of this horrific virus. We fully support the Mayor's Council and their public health advisors have administered to protect the public. We are better people when we consider the needs of others. And while representing various faith communities and serving at the pleasure of Mayor Bowser, we also are firmly partnered with the Mayor's Office of Religious Affairs in their pursuit of recruiting places of worship to use their excess land for affordable housing, addressing the hate and bias-related crimes against DC residents, and respond with moral clarity and spiritual leadership, connecting the religious communities with district government resources and advocating for the needs of the faith community. We are determined to use our voice as faith leaders and credible messengers to encourage our families, congregants, and neighbors to get fully vaccinated and boosted and to continue to wear a mask. In closing, I want to thank the Mayor's Office of Religious Affairs and the Committee on Government Operation for their leadership and guidance. The oversight process is vital to good governance, and I enjoy the accomplishments of the council as well as our collaborations with Maura. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time, and thank you.
Thank you both very much. I'm going to start with my questions for the Office of Religious Affairs. Director Bowen, I'm very happy to see that the agency's continued priority, that the agency continues to prioritize recruiting places of worship to use excess land for affordable housing. I know this is something that's been ongoing for a while. At this point, are you facing any challenges in getting buy-in from the local faith-based institutions?
Thank you. Good question. I think quite the opposite. And that's because as the pandemic has had an impact on the faith community, they've had to do some soul searching. And many are determined that they will not return to business as usual. As such, whereas some may have put a premium on gathering together for a day of worship, now they're having to look at the ministry, as many have done, outside the walls. And so some of the properties, and even where they're currently located, are things that they're re-examining as to whether or not it will fit not only their needs, but the needs of the community going forward. So there are individuals now I'm having conversation with, and folk who want to have conversation, who heretofore perhaps would not have ascertained or entertained doing something to where they are. This has led me to put some thought to the future of faith in DC, and I'm looking to give guidance later this year as we bring our faith community together. So I think that now more than ever, there are members of the faith community who are seeking to ascertain repurposing their land, the excess land in addition to where they are.
And on this subject, you mentioned in your testimony, the Housing Production Trust Fund. Do you know the percentage of Housing Production Trust funds set aside for faith-based institutions in FY21 and 22?
I don't know that percentage or that dollar amount. We've always made sure that houses of worship have access to the funds like others. And I know that recently there were dollars more targeted toward the faith community that could help them with their pre-production costs. But for those numbers and percentages, I would have to get back to you with that.
Okay. Do you happen to know if there are many faith-based institutions applying for Housing Production Trust Fund dollars?
The quick answer is yes. How many, I do not know. That's something else that I could get information on for an exact number.
Okay, I appreciate it. I'm really curious. This is an effort that I think has borne some fruit, and I'm trying to sort of get a sense of whether, like, we on the government side are meeting the need, and if we sort of need to change course. Of maybe we've gotten the low-hanging fruit on this, and we got to sort of think more strategically about our approach. I'm just not sure. So I'm trying to.
I would add, council member, that has been something in the past, whereas the faith community has asked for more dollars. Now, I think that our commitment to help with production costs is in response to that request for more funding. So I appreciate your thought on that.
You mentioned in your testimony one of the priorities to address hate and bias related crimes against district residents, and you cited, appropriately but very sadly, to the violence in Texas. To that end, I know that ORA continues to collaborate with MPD, HSEMA, Office on Human Rights, to respond to hate and bias-related crimes in the district. What are some examples of how agencies have worked together to respond to local hate and bias-related crimes?
Thank you once again. I appreciate the opportunity to respond to that, because there are people in the community who would say, well, what does an incident in Texas have to do with the District of Columbia? Well, immediately when that situation was taking place, I began receiving text messages from rabbis and other interested individuals seeking information as to what the impact might be here. The question that they have is the same question that others have. Are we safe? Are we safe here in the District of Columbia? And in this case, not only was my office able to outreach in conjunction with the IPAG that Moore is a co-convener along with HSEMA, but MPD has stepped to the plate. MPD was already visiting synagogues. I had rabbis that I knew who had contacted me on the phone, and as well as HSEMA and our IPAC co-partner. We made our rounds as well. We got additional help because also the White House convened a call for faith leaders to provide information, and we quickly spread that information to folk here. So it takes on a different approach at times. We benefited from the partnerships we've already had before this. So yes, I was in contact with someone from the JCRC as well as the ADL. We try to reach out to all the partners that we know, particularly those that fit a certain demographic. So it was all hands on deck in that regard.
As you know, there's pending litigation in DC Superior Court regarding the only Sikh temple in the district being denied property tax exempt status. A member of the temple contacted my office expressing concern on this topic. Have you had an opportunity to meet with members of the temple, and do you have a recommended course of action for the committee on this?
I can answer part of that question because as I know and you know, it's in litigation. And also, we don't get involved in the legal questions concerning a dispute. We're able, just like as your office is and has done, to make a general inquiry, but that becomes a legal matter. But it was not only my office, it was Moabia. And Moabia, I know has met with the Sikh temple, and I've had at least one conversation about that. But that's still, there still is desire and an interest as it relates to the Sikh temple, which I've been able to visit before the pandemic, and we will continue to monitor and see what the result, and then what we can do to assist going forward.
Okay. They're in litigation, but they've been stuck in litigation for quite some time on this issue. It strikes me as concerning that this is the only Sikh temple in the city, and it seems like the tax exempt status that they're trying to get is consistent with what other places of worship have. So there may be need for action from the city. The courts will examine what the law says now, but part of the challenge for us is, do we need to amend the law? And so if you have a perspective on that, we would welcome it, because we're trying to figure out the best course of action here.
Thank you.
How does the office send out flyers, like pamphlets, or other information to places of worship on government resources, either digitally or in hard copy?
We send out through mass mailings. We also send text messages. We make phone calls. We rely on partners like denominations to send to their membership. As I've been told, it's better for someone to get it 10 times and not at all. And so we've identified what we consider to be religious influences, which include denominations. We'll send to Reverend Raines at Christ United Methodist Church, but we'll also send to the Baltimore Washington Conference of United Methodist Church to make sure that they send to all the entities who may not, have email because they're more small churches or small places than they are mega. So we have to reach them in all manners. So I found quite helpful, not only emailing, not only texting, but calling, but also sharing with folks who we know will share with other individuals.
Okay. One of the strong achievements of the office and the Interfaith Council has been the Faith and Vaccine Credible Messengers initiative. Under DC Health and your leadership, and in conjunction with faith leaders, I think about 6,000 district residents received COVID-19 vaccines. Still, of course, though, you list vaccination hesitancy as one of the top 5 concerns to religious institutions. What can the district do better to encourage all of our residents, specifically in the faith communities, to get vaccinated?
Yeah, I think that number was as of October, during the course of the last fiscal year.
Okay.
Current number is, and the reason why we had faith in a vaccine was, one, we knew that faith leaders could act as credible messengers and people felt safe and comfortable going to houses of worship or going to a place in their community. Also because there were certain wards in the city that we wanted to make sure that they had access to the vaccine. So one of the things, though, as we have now a supply, whereas in DC, everyone who wants a vaccine can get a vaccine, is trying to follow a family approach. And in some religious circles, there's this adage, the family that prays together stays together. We're turning that around because that has been percolating in their minds for quite some time. And we're suggesting that the family that vaccinates together stays together. So we're trying to make it a family affair. We're trying to encourage people in the household, in the extended family, for which sometimes faith communities also considered a family. So I think it's those one-on-one conversations. Before, yes, we were looking at large numbers, but now, it's a day by day type thing, these conversations, and people give different advice. It's not one when you're shaming someone, but you're encouraging them. And faith community, our encouraging thing is that we're looking out not only for ourselves, but for our neighbors, to think about the other, that one of the highest religious values or faith value is concern for someone else other than yourself. So we're leaning in that regard. I'm trying to get people to understand the need to help not only themselves, their own household, but the entirety of our community, which is the bedrock for the thought that we'll get through this together.
Certainly is an ongoing challenge, and I think a challenge that religious institutions are better situated to meet than most others. So I appreciate your ongoing work there. Two additional concerns of religious institutions noted in your pre-hearing question responses are the future of houses of worship and gatherings during the COVID health crisis and the need for financial assistance or relief. Can you elaborate on those concerns and whether there's something the council can help you on in your efforts in these areas?
Yeah, so there are two things that have been occurring. In the health space, we talk about the most vulnerable being those individuals who have pre-existing, health conditions. Well, the same can be said about the faith community. For we know, I think as I alluded to, that when it comes to the faith community, they had, before the pandemic, been experienced some, not just a loss, but a decrease in the attendance of those who come into the places of worship during their time of worship. We can no longer, though, judge someone and measure someone's faith by how many times they go to the house of worship. There are just some folk also were given a pushback against organized religion, although they maintain their faith. There's just some things that they're just not total in agreement with. And so when you have a shrinking of the number of people coming for that faith Sabbath or time of worship, along now with the fact that there are many who are not rushing back into houses of worship. And also there's still places of worship that have not opened up their doors at all. Some who most recently had opened their doors and then closed and went back, online. But people are addressing it in different ways, and they're choosing things within the context and guidelines that we put out there that work best for them. I think in this regard, we ought to be prepared for when we get through or get to a point in the pandemic when houses of worship across our city will be able to go back to worship in those places, something that always existed. Although the mayor, when I came into the position, said I should deal with more than this, it's always going to be the parking aspect, right? That many people point to as being a barrier. But along with that, and if we attach ourselves to the idea of the future of faith, I think that we have to lean on, encourage people of faith also to come with us into the future and look at other ways of getting to the places of worship. So I think we have to have an honest conversation in which we're not only talking, but we're also listening and coming up with solutions that have a powerful impact. One thing is for sure, during this pandemic, the faith community has been there. They have been there for the most vulnerable folk in our community. And I do believe that there's some folk who had questioned about the need for the faith community before, who understand it now. For I had seen, even my own place of worship, people in the community coming to help with volunteer opportunities. And this says a whole lot about Washington, D.C.
Thank you for that. The Office of Religious Affairs, in partnership with the mayor and the council, hosted a day of mourning service. Will another service be held this fiscal year to honor the people we've lost since the last service on December 11th, 2020?
Yes. I think you're talking about the mass burial, that one?
I thought it was a day of mourning.
Day of mourning.
Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. There's a need. There's need to bring bring us together. You may or may not be aware, but the theme and the focus for Black History Month, as dictated by the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, has to do with mental health. So there are a lot of concerns that we have, given the number of loss that has impacted our community. There's hardly an individual who doesn't know someone who's been impacted or someone who's succumbed. So there's going to be a need to bring ourselves together, to lean upon each other, and to strengthen ourselves, and to point people then to the resources that are available. I'm happy for the work that DBH is doing in this regard, but most certainly we'll have another day, a morning, because it's needed.
I appreciate that. Okay, can you send the committee a list of all the events more plans to host this fiscal year?
Yes.
Thank you. Vice Chair Zacharias, sorry to leave you waiting so long. Let me jump into some questions for you. Mayor's Order 2011-110, which is the statute authorizing the Interfaith Council, looks like it's sunset on June 30th, 2021. Is the council aware of any plans by the mayor to extend its mandate?
Thank you, Councilman. To my understanding, yes. Reverend Bowen would be able to best answer that, but to my understanding, yes.
From my understanding, most certainly that will occur, but I can have a definitive answer after this. But yes, I think that the mayor supports fully the work of the Mayor's Interfaith Council and appreciates the value that they add.
I appreciate that. From your pre-hearing responses, Reverend Dr. Zacharias, it's not clear if the council met in fiscal year 21 and 22 to date. The council is mandated to meet 2 times each calendar year. Was there a meeting in 21 or so far in 22?
Our meeting didn't happen in person. We were able to meet sporadically by way of crisis calls to be able to be in action to help whatever was needed by the mayor or within the community by way of hate crime, by way of death, by way of action to assist in the police department with Chief Conti, but we were not able to meet in person because of the continual crises of the pandemic in houses, our own particular local in houses, as well as the collective houses of worship.
Okay. I guess I would ask to be aware there may be requirements under like Open Government Act or other sunshine laws that meetings of a certain size be open to the public, and I'm sure Director Bowen can work with you on that. But certainly, I think it's important to try to have those formal meetings as required by the statute, because what we see in other commissions and councils is that when those don't happen, people stop engaging. So hopefully, do you plan on having more formalized meetings this year?
Yes, we actually have one tomorrow.
Oh, great.
And throughout the year.
Perfect. Have there been challenges getting members engaged and able to attend meetings over the past couple of years?
Not when we made the calls, we've had good numbers.
Okay.
The challenges was just because, as we've stated earlier, just the amount of overwhelming pandemic that's been occurring, from the viruses to individual families, to COVID contracting, to the amount of deaths that have occurred in houses of worship. We have not been able to do so collectively because of those particular issues.
I appreciate that. For members of the public, I want to sort of re-highlight this. Places of worship are dealing with difficulties and deaths, not just in the families of their leadership, but in the families sort of, under their counsel and prayer. Not to mention, a lot of our places of institutions have been chipping in to support community efforts in significant ways. And I've seen strain on many places of institution because they're trying to help meet the various needs: vaccination, food, mental health, all kinds of needs. And so I do recognize the strain that there has been, a unique strain over the past couple of years. And I think that there are not, the council didn't host any activities or events in fiscal year 21 or to date in 22. Is that accurate? And if so, is it because of the issue that we just discussed?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What are your thoughts on Reverend Bowen? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to state that many of the events, and we don't do lots of events, that's how more is different. We perhaps do less than some of the other MOCA agencies, but we most recently we brought faith leaders together to meet with Chief Conti to talk about ways that the faith community could work together, and it is such a nice embrace that we're seeking to have that meeting multiple times a year. But most recently, we did have faith leaders meet with Chief Conti.
I appreciate that, and I understand that it's a different agency with sort of a different mission. Well, one that does in many circumstances need to be responsive. So I do understand that. Reverend Dr. Zacharias, do you have thoughts now on whether you will plan events and activities for this year? Do you think this year will sort of look like next year? What are your thoughts about the year ahead?
I think it's going to be a combination of both and. Yes, we're looking to plan some events, not only for our own particular meeting events, but also to be in the assistance to help other agencies as well as faith agencies to come together to fulfill their particular missions and accomplishments. Looking to deal with aspects in regards to hate. How do we continue to help partner with DC police and Chief Conti in regards to the violence and reducing that and gun violence? How also can we do forums and workshops towards affordable housing and financing and connecting faith communities with agencies so that we can continue to partnership as we've been doing with mayor's office as well as the government.
In your meeting tomorrow, will that meeting be open to the public?
Primarily it's open to just the religious fairs or to those who are attending for a part of MIC, but it has not been open to the public.
Reverend Bowen.
Get unmute, brother.
Yes, just some clarification because those meeting notices are sent out by our office. I think that's what Dr. Zacharias is referring to. The meeting notice he gets is for the commission, but obviously we post it on OpenGov, and obviously we use our social media. But part of the conflict that resulted in Dean Pierce not being able to be here today, we will actually move that meeting to the next week or following. But to reiterate, our meetings are made public. We may not get a lot of people coming, from the public, which may also impact the decision. It seems just like it's only the council, but we continue to follow the guidelines and post and share on social media. And we may have one or two people who always reach out and they want to come and present, but it is an open meeting.
Okay, I appreciate it. And as long as you have your eye on that for the council, it's not so much to get numbers there, but just to make sure it's public work, and so law says they have to be open if people want to attend. So I appreciate your attention to that. So the Director Bowen mentioned in his testimony that the council's leadership in discussing the issue of homelessness in our city. Can you give me a little more detail on what the council has done in this area?
Some details that we have done in that area in helping the homeless. One example is at my own church, that we are partnering with Terrific Inc. and the Oasis Center to help homeless men, as well as those who have been transitioning in housing, to be able to utilize church space or houses of worship space for those particular partnerships. So those are one main ideas that we're looking to do, as well as to see if there are houses of worship that have the excess land to provide particular repurposing of their building or use of space to specifically help in the areas of housing for homeless, as well as wraparound services.
Okay. Yeah, Reverend Bowen.
Yeah, Dr. Zacharias and John Wells have been great partners, as have other places. New York Avenue Presbyterian comes to mind. But that's a part of why we want to convene faith leaders this year, because we believe that our faith leaders and the property they possess can be used to help us with some situations that we quite honestly need help with. And we know there's a need to provide adult care or places for those who are experiencing homelessness. But our faith community possession of lots of land and property that we believe can be utilized to help meet the needs of members in our community, as many are doing. But we share ideas because there may be some who are not aware of what John Wesley is doing and Dr. Zacharias. And once they're made aware, then they would say, hey, how can we do the same thing? I'm amazed at the ID ministry at Foundry United Methodist Church, who walk folk through the process of attaining their ID, because as you know, without that, you can't even attain some services. And they have that down to a science. And I've seen people come from all 8 wards to Foundry for assistance and just getting their ID so they can finally fill out the forms for that job they've been offered. But we need to share this with other folk and other people in the faith community and give them the assistance so they can do the same.
One last question for you, Vice Chair Zacharias. I do appreciate the council's commitment to diversity and inclusion. And I noted earlier, Chair Pearson informed the committee that DC is one of the most diverse faith communities in the nation. There are many faiths not represented on the council. So how do you ensure that the council is aware of and supportive of all faiths?
Through several ways. Not only do we express it through our social media platforms, as well as within our particular meetings, but we're also looking to partner as well as to meet with those particular agencies of inclusion that can be best fitted to help include that as aspects of unconditional love.
I appreciate that. I mean, it's, one of the challenges of being such a diverse city is that there are a lot of perspectives, and you can't have everybody at the table because you'd never be able to conduct a meeting, but you do want to make sure all perspectives are at the table. So yes, Reverend Boyd.
Sorry, Councilmember. This is important to me, diversity and representation. When it comes to the Mayor's Interfaith Council, that means have representation across all 8 wards. That's gender and sexuality, that's race, that's denomination, and that's faith. So we're trying to be intentional about having individuals. Most recently we had representative for a long time, Dr. Reverend Sue Taylor from the Church of Scientology. And I'm just waiting for an appointment of the new leader at the Washington Ethical Society, because I think it's very important that we have someone who's coming from that tradition, from a humanist tradition. As I said in my testimony, we're looking for those and working people of faith and nuns. That is those who are not religiously affiliated, because that is mirrors what Washington, D.C. is, and we're better when we have respect for that.
I appreciate that. Those are all the questions that I have. I do want to thank you both, and for you, Reverend Bro, and to you and in your team, and for you, Reverend Dr. Zacharias, for you and the rest of the council for the work that you all are doing. Certainly, as there are ways that the committee can be helpful or supportive of the work you're doing, as always, let us know. We do want to make sure we're supporting your efforts, but want to say thank you for the work you're doing, and thank you for being with us today for this hearing.
Thank you as well, sir.
As we transition to our final government panel, we're going to take a roughly 7-minute recess. So we will reconvene at 2:40 with the Office of LGBTQ Affairs and the Advisory Committee. We are in recess. Okay, we are resumed. Director Bowles, welcome.
Good afternoon.
And we are waiting for Chairperson Corte. Welcome. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too, Councilmember.
Wonderful. All right. It is the practice of this committee to put our government witnesses under oath. So I will ask that you both raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to provide to the Committee on Government Operations and Facilities is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Director Bowles, you can begin your testimony when you're ready.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Chairman White, members of the committee, and community members. My name is Jaber Bowles, he, him, his, and I was appointed by Mayor Muriel Bowser as the director of the Mayor's Office of Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Questioning Affairs, more commonly known as the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs. It has been the honor of my life to serve in the administration and the residents of DC in this capacity as we give members of the LGBTQ+ community a fair shot at a pathway to the middle class. I want to first say thank you to Mayor Muriel Bowser for allowing me to build on the amazing progress of our community and the movement, and I'm truly humbled by the leadership of my predecessor, Sheila Alexander Reed. Washington, D.C. has one of the highest concentrations of LGBTQ folks per capita in the nation, representing an estimated 10% of the population. And as you know, Washington, D.C. is also one of a limited number of jurisdictions in our nation where LGBTQ rights and aspirations are codified and solidly protected. DC residents have a right to all vital records, including their birth certificate, to reflect current gender identity, regardless of gender identification at birth. DC led on the front to legalize the right to marry, regardless of gender, gender identity, and sexual orientation. And DC has a solid employment and housing discrimination protections, dutifully enforced by the district's own Office of the Human Rights. And as recently as 2020, added another protected class for our LGBTQ seniors and seniors living with HIV. Additionally, DC leaders, particularly Mayor Muriel Bowser, have continued to make historic investments in our community. This work, with the support of Mayor Muriel Bowser and the Office of LGBTQ Affairs, is among the leading and the most resourced offices with similar missions in the nation. Mayor Muriel Bowser has a strong connection with our community, and her investments show that she is not only an ally, but a champion for the LGBTQ+ community. Last year, Mayor Muriel Bowser invested over $4 million in dedicated resources for our community. The DC Center and other groups, including Capital Pride Alliance, have outgrown their current location and are currently located in the Reeve Center, which is set to be reimagined in the near future. Mayor Muriel Bowser recognizes that the need to expand such a vital resource for the community and has invested $1 million to the organization to begin the process of relocating their headquarters. The community has formed a DC Queer Space Task Force, and the Deputy Mayor of Planning and Economic Development and the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs are working diligently and collaboratively to ensure that the LGBTQ+ community in DC has a dedicated space that provides essential resources for members of the community. We know that members of the LGBTQ+ community are more likely than the general population to also experience domestic and intimate partner violence and face additional barriers in seeking help. Mayor Muriel Bowser recognizes that the need and has funded a LGBTQ-led and dedicated CBO that will provide trauma-informed therapy services and case management to LGBTQ+ individuals experiencing domestic violence and intimate partner violence. As you can expect, our office, the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs, will continue to support the CBO and refer LGBTQ+ individuals to their services as needed. We also know that our trans and gender non-conforming folks face additional barriers to obtaining housing, and that even though there are existing programs and funding to support our trans and gender non-conforming youth, they age out of these programs. They're often unable to access the support they need. However, Mayor Muriel Bowser listens, and under her leadership, the Department of Human Services has made significant investments to house our LGBTQ residents experiencing homelessness, including a low barrier shelter for our trans and gender nonconforming adult residents, which will be awarded by DHS in 2022. As expected, the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs will be proactive with LGBTQ CBOs to ensure that they're aware of this opportunity. These are just some examples of the commitment that Mayor Muriel Bowser has for the LGBTQ+ community. And Mayor Muriel Bowser and the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs recognizes that there is more work to be done. And we look forward to partnering with the DC Council and members of the community to address them. The initiatives that the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs seeks to build on this upcoming fiscal year are as follows. Our signature events. My first event as the new director of the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs, as you recall, was the 34th annual high heel race, and to great fanfare. I was really proud to see the thousands of DC residents safely attending an event and the dozens strutting their stuff in gorgeous costumes, albeit, and outfits down 17th Street. The Mayor's Office has already began planning and preparing for the 35th annual high heel race. In the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs, we celebrate our diversity by showing solidarity with our intersex and our trans and gender nonconforming community, which is why Mayor Muriel Bowser made November 8th Intersex Solidarity Day and recognized the annual Trans Day of Remembrance on November 20th. I was honored to attend the TDOR events in Maryland and speak at the events in DC to reiterate DC's and the mayor's commitment to resources for our trans and gender nonconforming community. The Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs leads the nation in recognizing the contributions of our intersex and trans and gender nonconforming community, and we will continue to do so. World AIDS Day was on December 1st, and in collaboration with Serve DC and the Department of Health, we held a beautiful event at Hook Hall full of storytelling, heartfelt performances, and reflection. And we continue and we seek to build on that in this upcoming year. And finally, the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs acknowledges the significance of Pride in DC historically. The Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs is committed to working with the Center for Black Equity and Capital Pride Alliance to ensure that all celebrations, Capital Pride, Black Pride, Trans Pride, Youth Pride, Latino Pride, API Pride, are successful. The Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs believes success is determined by impact, reach, and community safety. And according to CPA's recent economic analysis of Pride Month, these celebrations generate upwards of $300 million in revenue for DC for a larger scale outdoor event. These celebrations promote LGBTQ diversity, they create jobs, and they allow for our CBOs to fundraise for much needed LGBTQ resources. As always, the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs is committed to supporting this extremely important event. The Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs is also providing extensive community outreach to ensure that specific demographics of our community have an opportunity to share their unique experiences and issues. Key outreach activities include our monthly LGBTQ meet and greets, our quarterly community safety panels, our quarterly LGBTQ veteran socials, and our nightlife chats with local nightlife owners and managers. The Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs has already done extensive outreach and will continue to do so. But I also want to promise that every DC LGBTQ CBO will have had at least one planning meeting with the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ leadership. The Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs also provides cultural competency training for district agencies and youth housing providers. And our efforts have broadcasted this service, and we have expanded our goals for this training to be even more inclusive of non-district agencies and CBOs that request this service. The Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs believes that providing these trainings will not only empower employees and CBOs with the tools they need to comfortably interact, but also support the members of our LGBTQ+ community. With the leadership and commitment of Mayor Muriel Bowser, the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs has dispersed nearly $200,000 towards LGBTQ programming and grants in FY22. And to date, our grant programs are currently addressing the immediate needs of the most marginalized residents in DC. The Mayor's Office of LGBTQ's grantee organizations programs diligently work to achieve the development of local nonprofits, business owners, shelters, and all service providers and professionals in that field. Our Innovative Grant Program Fund also allows for community-based organizations the ability to offer the most needed culturally competent care and services while expanding their commitment and dedicated service delivery. And this is by being equipped and empowered to elevate LGBTQ communities' health and wellness, linkage to human services, promotion of the arts and humanities, economic workforce development, increasing youth engagement, and bringing education and awareness to the needs of this vulnerable community in DC. Finally, in FY 2021, the mayor increased and the mayor, Muriel Bowser, and DC Council allotted for 20 new additional LGBTQ plus affordable housing vouchers and our 20 LGBTQ dedicated senior vouchers. This program was a key enabler to the mayor's office to allow our voucher program the opportunity to target a wider population of LGBTQ youth and adult individuals experiencing unstable housing and homelessness in the district. As you can probably tell, the Mayor Muriel Bowser and the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs stands with the community in leading a charge for more LGBTQ rights and resources. And Mayor Muriel Bowser is proud to have such a well-resourced office and empowers me to keep pushing. Thank you for your support, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Porte, you can begin your testimony when you're ready.
Thank you and good afternoon, Chairman White, members of the committee and the staff. I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte, and I'm honored to serve Mayor Muriel Bowser in the District of Columbia as chair of the advisory committee on the Mayor's Office of Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Questioning Affairs. Our advisory committee does not manage the budget. We don't manage staff or issue grants to community-based organizations. This is the work of the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs and its new leadership team led by Director Japper Bowles, who just spoke. The advisory committee is tasked with giving community leaders an opportunity to share insights, to make recommendations based upon their lived experience as LGBTQ district residents, and promote resources developed by the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs. I'm delighted to join you today again in my personal capacity as chair of the advisory committee to highlight the diligence of the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs to meet the needs of the district's LGBTQ plus residents. DC's LGBTQ plus residents represent the majority of the homeless youth living on the street. We represent the majority of people living with HIV. We represent seniors that do not have families and support structures because they identify as LGBTQ plus or same gender loving. Our friends, our loved ones, our neighbors, and fellow community members were facing isolation before the pandemic and now face even higher levels of anxiety and depression brought about by further isolation. We represent Black and Brown trans residents that are discriminated against in the workplace and forced to work in underground industries that are not safe. The advisory committee has worked diligently with LGBTQ plus community members to bring these and many more issues to the forefront. And I'm really proud to say that we have a leader in Mayor Muriel Bowser and in the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs. Might I add even big shoes to fill? You mentioned Sheila Alexander Reed at the beginning of this hearing. I'm proud to say that under Japper Bowles' leadership, we are taking things to the next level. Mayor Muriel Bowser's investments show that She's not only an ally, but a champion for the LGBTQ community. Last year, Mayor Bowser invested over $4 million in resources for the LGBTQ plus community. And the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs and the Advisory Committee, we are champions of those investments, ensuring that the resources are being utilized expeditiously and are delivered by LGBTQ plus dedicated and led community-based organizations. The Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs and the Advisory Committee are committed to collaborating on providing resources for at-risk LGBTQ community folks and LGBTQ plus youth. Both organizations really play a vital role in increasing LGBTQ plus visibility and culturally competent resources within the district. The Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs in programming and policy and the Advisory Committee and being the visible leaders throughout the district. The Advisory Committee is promoting and sharing the initiatives of the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs to ensure the safety of our LGBTQ residents, safety from hate crimes to COVID-19. It's all front and center. The Advisory Committee consists of business and nonprofit leaders, and we'll also be sharing our members' personal experiences and networks to ensure that, again, the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs can continue to support and enhance that capacity for our LGBTQ plus businesses and nonprofits. Chairman White, in 2006, the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs was established, as you know, by statute to address the critical concerns of the district's gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender residents. The District of Columbia had and continues to have one of the highest concentrations of LGBTQ residents in the country, and the progress that this office, the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs, the progress that we seek to build upon, it's solid. In 2022, the Advisory Committee seeks to empower our new director to engage residents and highlight issues of concern to the LGBTQ community and find innovative ways of utilizing government resources to help address these challenges. And so let me just say in closing, I really want to thank you for your leadership and your support, Chairman White. The Advisory Committee stands ready to offer community perspectives that may be helpful and instructive to the work of this committee. I also want to make clear that there were a number of folks that have testified so far this afternoon. And I appreciate the fact that you had asked a question earlier. Where could the Office of LGBTQ Affairs do better? Clearly from Japper's testimony and from what I've just shared, you can see that we're tracking with those questions that were raised just this afternoon. We just had an LGBTQ advisory meeting yesterday evening in which many of those issues came up. And so our community engagement, the state of our community engagement is strong. And so this concludes my presentation. I'm now happy to address any and every question you have at this time.
Oh, thank you both very, very much. And we'll jump right in. I'm going to start with questions for Director Bowles. Director, in your testimony, you mentioned the $1 million that we helped secure for a new LGBTQ center and that the community has formed a DC Queer Space task force to help with planning the transition. Can you give us any details on the status of that project?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do. So first off, thank you for that question. Thank you for allowing me to be here to talk more about these issues. So as I mentioned in my testimony, there have been numerous CBOs, so community-based organizations, as well as just individuals who are interested in keeping and expanding this space. After the budget investments last cycle, the DC Center, they wanted community input, and they sought to create the Queer Space Task Force. In my previous position, I was a member of said task force. And in this capacity, I look forward to continuing to liaise with them as needed. And I say that because DMPED has done a good job. I've recently been in contact with the chair of the task force, which is the vice chair of the DC Center, Commissioner Rahana Mohammed, and just making sure if there's anything that they do need to let us know. We are, again, working collaboratively with DMPED, and we expect to continue this conversation. As you know, there's a lot of different issues and that need to be answered in terms of finding a location, what the needs will be for it, and they are hoping to work that out, and we are hoping to be and continue to be a resource for them in guiding that process.
Do you know their timeline?
In terms of disbursement of funds or timeline of building?
Developing a plan. So the DC Queer Space Task Force is developing a plan.
Yeah, so I do know that they need a plan to receive funds from the government, so they know what they're going to be spending these funds are. And I will say, I think that they would be able to give a better update on this, but I think February and March, there should be larger news about the direction of where they're looking to go. I do also know, and I am working with the DC Center, who is in the office space with at the Reeves building, which is also where our office is located. They're located directly across from our office on the first floor. So they have until the end of this calendar year to relocate. So we are very much connected in making sure that our neighbors have a space at the beginning of next calendar year. I do also know that the board of directors for the DC Center has had recent meetings and/or maybe having a meeting or board retreat this weekend to further determine what their mission and goals are for a building. So I would definitely recommend your office reaching out to them, and/or I'm glad to make the connection.
We will. We would love to connect with them. I would just want to make sure sort of we understand their timeline and see if there are any supports that they need. When the issue of, I think I counted 14 different grants that the office awarded in fiscal year 21 and 22 to date. How do you keep tabs on the grantee performance with a total office size of 3 or 4 people? How do you sort of make sure this government money is being utilized effectively and appropriately?
Yeah, I would just like to commend our professional staff, Ms. Leandria Gilliam. She is our grant and housing specialist, and she is experienced in grant management, from outreach to intake to approval. We have internal systems to ensure that folks are in line and able to continue to do reporting. I am very confident in our grantees to do what they were asked and chosen to do. And we have done considerable more outreach to them, instead of just saying, hey, what's your report? I want to participate in your activities. I want to know the folks who are receiving these programs and resources. So I can also not only look at the quantitative data that we are collecting, but also offer qualitative data and stories to just reinforce that this money is well spent.
You in your pre-hearing questions, the drug addiction is something that came up in your response about the LGBTQ community safety. Do you have any statistics on drug addiction and harm disparities affecting LGBTQ people in DC that you could share with the committee after this hearing?
Absolutely. I would love to work with my partners at HOSTA to help formulate that information, but also looking at the folks who are doing the critical care work, folks that I could point to immediately, HIPS. They provide these types of services and are often the first point of contact to resources for many folks. I will also say our office is being proactive in being trained on Narcan administration, and will be a champion for all of our community affairs offices to also undergo that crucial training, because it isn't just the LGBTQ plus community, even though I will send you that data, it is across the board, especially with COVID.
Yeah. It sounds like you are making progress on the agency's statutory mandate to convene coordinators from different agencies, and you plan to hold 10 meetings this calendar year. Are there any agencies that you have identified as high priority but haven't they haven't committed to participating at this point?
No, I've gotten a lot of really great reception, especially the folks that I work with often, which is about a dozen to 20 or so. I mean, again, we are constituent service driven office. So just because, you're not reaching out to us for housing services, we'll connect you with folks at DCRA, or if you've got a parking ticket, we're the liaison to really any DC government agency that you need. So yeah, I haven't had difficulties, especially with the ones that I have regular contact with and that are regularly engaged and provide services to our LGBTQ plus community.
Okay, good to know. You also mentioned in your testimony cultural competency training for district agencies and youth housing providers. How frequently do those trainings occur?
Yeah, so there's two parts to that. The legal requirement for our grants is to provide grant funding for folks who will then provide the cultural competency training. So we teach them and give our best guidance, and then they either increase or better dedicate their resources to target a specific group. I'm mostly, in layman's terms, there's more than just certain types of LGBTQ cultural competency. We fund two organizations, one that mostly caters to our Latino and Hispanic population, and then another grantee also provides cultural competency, but additionally adds mental health services to it. And that's for the staff. So the staff understand, all of the mental health issues in addition to the cultural competency. So those are required by our grants, I believe, monthly. And I could get back to you on the exact legal requirements for that. And then our office, we have a goal to host at least 3 cultural competency trainings each month, and to continue to partner with organizations to do so. We have a great partnership that we just started with CSOSA to work with their executive order that President Biden signed, which essentially requires this type of training. And we, just as an example, are working with them to ensure that their folks are culturally competent, but also advising them on any applications that they have, any intake process, and really trying to create a space where people can ask questions. And just as you're very well aware, language is always ever changing in the LGBTQ plus community. And I will say, I don't want to speak for everyone in the community, but we do have grace. And that's one of our biggest parts in cultural competency is, our community has grace. If there's a misgender or a misgender term or something else that can offend a person, we're trying to teach people to reconcile that and not just continue to cause harm, but move on from that and create support structures where they can not just be competent, but welcoming to our community. So
I appreciate that. So when you look at the various cultural competency trainings that are going on and let us know just about how frequently those occur?
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it. Having that baseline will be helpful. And I know that you all have done a number of meet and greets, safety panels, and nightlife chats. Is there anything specific that has been identified from these sort of meetings that might change the work that you're doing going forward?
I would say yes. At every meeting, I get a candid conversation from someone about an issue in the LGBTQ plus community. Just recently, the one that we had yesterday, there was an issue brought to us about opening up an LGBTQ plus space, restaurant, bar on Capitol Hill. So these meetings are really crucial to me because yes, I have a large network. Yes, I read social media. I'm talking to people, but this is literally like creating a space for people to come and bring issues, and they feel safe bringing those issues to me. So yeah, absolutely. I originally was like, I wonder if people are even going to come to these things. I wonder if people are even going to find this useful. We have a feedback survey that we utilize after. So if people aren't comfortable, they're able to discuss their issues. We have an intake form that we share too. Again, like you don't have to, you can call us, you can email us, but you can also use this form to better to schedule something or just ask a general question. And so, yeah, those are some of the ways that we are moving from that.
And from your response to pre-hearing question 40, it looks like the DC Jail Transgender Housing Committee had a burst of 7 meetings last summer after the ACLU sued the Department of Corrections, but it doesn't look like they've met again since you took office. Is that right?
I would have to check specifically to say yes or no. And I say that because that is by a case-by-case basis. So based on my understanding, which I still am 3 months into the job, a inmate would request that there would be a housing committee to better determine where they would be housed. So that request can happen. I believe that request has happened 10 times. I believe that there have been 5 meetings, and I believe that there have been 3 trans identifying inmates that have been housed through that committee. So there's definitely some data to sift through there. Mm-hmm. And I would love to work with this committee to better determine, the procedural aspects for that. But every time that has been requested, we have had our office participate virtually.
Okay. Yeah, we do want to just make sure for the long term that this committee is meeting as much as is necessary, and that we don't continue to see the types of mistakes that we've seen in the past on this. What's the LGBTQ plus expungement event that you're planning, and is that something that we can help promote?
Absolutely. Yeah, we would love to work in collaboration with you. So that's very much in the beginning stages. I definitely don't want to steal the fire from a CBO who's been working on this for quite some time, but we absolutely see the need of LGBTQ folks having records and not knowing about the resources to get those things expunged. And I'm sure you're a huge advocate for our returning citizens. So many barriers that are happen through employment, housing, just for people who are formerly incarcerated. Add, the sexuality, add the race, add the sexual orientation. That's just layers on layers on layers. So yes, we absolutely see a need. We will be either a co-host or in a supporting role to the CBO that would be interested in partnering, but we're hoping to bring in lots of folks, including the Mayor's Office of Returning Citizens, the Office of Victim Services and Justice Grants, and the Office of Religious Affairs. We really think that makes a lot of sense. And of course, would love to coordinate with you all, and or if you have any other guidance, we'd love to hear.
Okay, well, just consider us a partner in outreach. We're happy to help spread the word for that important effort and others. I recently heard from a community representative who believed that our local HIV and AIDS, hepatitis, STD, and TB administration had not done any targeted outreach to people living with HIV about specific issues like early eligibility for vaccines and boosters. Have you had any communication with DC Health on this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. So they're one of my top agencies and partners. As it's in the name, a lot of folks in our community either experience HIV or AIDS, or have community members or partners that are working with these issues. We have been in constant collaboration with them. I would point to World AIDS Day as a prime example since I've been in this role of them doing that outreach. There, in addition to testing that was provided there for HIV, there was also testing for COVID. I do think that there's always an opportunity to expand and do better collaboration. And, I definitely have plans to work with HOSTA to make those things deliverable. Okay. I will also say our office is in the process of having 2 health impact specialists that would be focusing on this type of outreach. And we're hoping to have those folks onboarded in the very near future. They're one-term internship type of programs. I'm sure you're aware of. And we think it's necessary to have, these resources, but also just to better train the next generation. That's a gateway and an opportunity. And, we want to hire more queer people in our office. So, being able to get folks that experience at a younger age and at an entry level position, we believe is very valuable to create leaders for the next generation.
And you'll be in touch with HOSTA just to make sure they're, doing as much targeted outreach as possible to people living with HIV.
Absolutely. And I will also say, their relationship with organizations such as Us Helping Us and HIPS. I mean, I've directly seen the interactions that they have with them, not only at World AIDS Day, but at other events since I've started. Yeah. And they are very reliant and huge supporters of HOSTA because they do deliver, the funding dollars. And I do know that that is something that advocates and community members are always trying to press for, as they should. We are doing the same too. HOSTA is doing the same too. Whenever there's funding for available for the feds, from the feds, we're all on board to ensure that we can get that money directed towards our community, which again has the highest percentage per capita of LGBTQ folks in the nation. So yeah, we are seeking, and I also want to point out, we have a wonderful working relationship with the Washington AIDS Partnership, which is another organization that does this crucial work.
I know that that you've been committed to holding business opportunity events with the Office of Contracting and Procurement and Department of Small Local Business Development. As you know, this committee also oversees OCP. So could you just keep me posted on the planning for those events so I can help encourage participation?
I would absolutely love that.
I appreciate it. And do you have any ideas about how to get more reliable data on the size and need of our LGBTQ veteran population? This is something that's come up over the past couple of years, and I wonder if you've had any conversations with the Office of Veterans Affairs on this topic as they've worked to hire a new LGBTQ veteran coordinator.
No, absolutely. So I kind of want to pull it back a little bit. So we have hired a Veterans Affairs coordinator, or an LGBTQ plus Veterans Affairs coordinator. They are in our office, well, when we're in person every Wednesday, and are continuing to do outreach to the community. We had one long-term survey with an LGBTQ veteran so far, and continue to seek to do that outreach to get the long qualitative data that we have. Additionally, Fallon, her her main role right now is to create and manifest all of the different data that is out there. So working collaboratively with all the different agencies that we have. That is the number one thing that Director Domingo and myself are hoping to get in terms of deliverables by the end of this fiscal year. We want to use that data at the end of this fiscal year to continue to promote, our LGBTQ veterans. And we're in the process of also planning a Don't Ask, Don't Tell event in September that will build upon, the history and the stories, also act as an advocacy engagement for the feds and for you all. So plan on some LGBTQ events coming and chatting with you in the future. And then also just having socials, saying, hey, we're here, we're queer, and we have a space. I will say from the folks that I've heard so far, LGBTQ veterans either feel like they're part of the LGBTQ plus community or part of the veterans community. And that is heartbreaking on so many levels. So we do have a lot of work to do, but I'm very confident in the investments and the position and resources that we have recently received to collect the data, to determine what the issues are, and to really just be visible. And I'm really excited to work with Fallon. And again, we will be having office hours. She'll be doing clinics every other week, specifically for our LGBTQ folks. And again, just providing that outreach is something that we are really, really excited to do, especially because we are such a large military veterans hub throughout the entire nation.
Yeah, it will be a challenge to get reliable data, from as many of people as possible. So that is a real challenge in front, not just data, but as much data as possible, data that is informative. The District Government Transgender and Non-Binary Employment Study Act of 2020 commissioned a study of how we as a government treat our transgender and non-binary workers. Your written responses indicated that the survey is in process of launching. When should employees expect to receive the survey?
Yeah, so I would not be the lead on that. I do know that a survey has been created, as well as the tools outlined. I will also say that in addition to just we don't want to mess this up. We want to make sure that we're able to get all of the data as possible, as much data as possible. And that's not just sending an email blast to everyone and saying, hey, Phil, if you know a person that's trans in your department, please have them fill this information out. We're doing much, much more than that. And it does take a longer and more collaborative process, especially working with the Office of Human Rights and DCHR. And long way of saying that we're very much in the process of launching this survey, and that in addition to sending out a survey, we're hoping to have focus groups as well as long-term interviews to get that qualitative data. That way we can build upon the report and show something that is a quality deliverable for stakeholders and for us policymakers. I think that especially looking through the data, we're excited.
I get that it's a complex survey, but do you have a timeline?
I would have to get back to you on that.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And obviously the committee was very proud to write and fund the LGBTQ Community Business Evaluation and Support Amendment Act of 2021 last year to better support our LGBTQ businesses, a topic that has come up even recently. Can you report any developments or considerations that have cropped up as you started to implement the study?
Absolutely. So this study is by law required for our office to undertake. So we have submitted a statement of work. We are in the process of identifying grantees, or not grantees, contractors. And we are still on track to have this delivered by the legal requirement, which I believe is July 31st. I will say, very much impacted by LGBTQ businesses and very much supportive of them. And I very much look forward to using this data to better make resources and policy changes needed for our LGBTQ plus community. I will also say that yes, there are many issues, but DC is one of the leading spots to open an LGBTQ business. Gay Cities just reported an article, I think 2 days ago, that had 3 brand new LGBTQ dedicated nightlife and or restaurant spaces. So yes, across the nation, they are going down, they're closing. But, in DC, we are providing the resources and the community to have these dedicated safe spaces.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear about the report. We've also seen some, it's been heartbreaking to see so many closures, and we got to understand what's going on and see how we prevent these safe spaces from, leaving existence. Regarding the new low barrier shelter project, and I think you mentioned this in your testimony, what have you learned from outreach sessions and surveys that your office has helped organize? And have there been any discussions of how DHS can broaden those lessons to bring those lessons to their work?
Yeah, so we have had direct outreach sessions to members of the community. They are trying to solicit information to better create the bid for the low barrier shelter. Your question, I guess, relates to like not best practices, but like what have you learned in this process so far?
That's right.
Is that right? Okay.
That's right.
I don't think it's necessarily learning, but more as like reiterating things we already knew, that this is a very difficult population to obtain information for, and for very good reasons. If you aren't able to get a job because of housing, because of discrimination, or housing because of discrimination, filling out a survey, probably not the top of your list of things to do. Right. So being innovative and coming and meeting people where they are, I think is something that DHS does a great job. And I also want to reiterate, like, the point in time count is tonight. And that is a prime example of DC government meeting people where they are and surveying, their degrees of experiencing homelessness. And really excited that, MOVA, the Mayor's Office of Veteran Affairs, and our office will be on the ground tonight from 9 to 2 to show support and also to survey this population.
My staff recently attended a town hall hosted by Black Swan Academy, where youth leaders spoke up about the need for more gender neutral bathrooms in schools and a social studies curriculum that acknowledges queer history instead of erasing it. Can I ask you to connect with Black Swan Academy students on their priorities and report back to the committee about any barriers you encounter?
Absolutely. I have an open door policy, and I would love to hear their recommendations on that. I will also say, I don't think we've gotten to it yet, but there's a rainbow caucus for ANC commissioners, but there's also 2 school board members who openly identify as LGBTQ, and making sure that I have an open relationship with them and hearing, what they hear is something that I do often have constant communication with these folks to know what is going on in our education and in our schools. So yeah, I would absolutely love to better connect and empower our youth. That's one of our 4 focuses for our office, is to empower our LGBTQ youth, and whether that be curriculum or after school programming or jobs and internships, we definitely want to be there.
Wonderful, wonderful. Let me turn to Dr. Corte. I don't want you to feel left out here. I was very excited to see that the advisory committee is now up to 19 members plus Director Bowles. Last year there were only 13. So congratulations on growing the committee, and very much appreciate the work that you and the rest of your team are doing there. Let me ask, how have you gone about advising the office and the mayor on recruiting new members?
Well, just yesterday, we had a pretty robust conversation with our members in terms of how they can participate in efforts to recommend folks that might be interested in serving. We're really proud of the diversity that we have on the advisory, racial diversity, gender diversity, LGBTQ diversity, diversity in terms of ward representation. And so we want to keep doing that. There are some wards, some specific wards that we prioritize where, we want to make sure that folks are properly represented. We've gotten a bit more creative in terms of our outreach, as you can imagine, as we're in this sort of virtual holding pattern until it's safer to get together in person. I think that's been a part of the secret sauce, and quite frankly, the enthusiasm. I think folks are really encouraged by some of the successes and some of the wins, quite frankly, that this community has had under Mayor Bowser's leadership and with the support of you and your committee. And so I think there are a number of folks that want to keep the momentum going. And so hearings like this, where we have an opportunity to shine a light on the great work that we're doing and the learnings that we are acquiring along the way and the blind spots that may exist. I think hearings like this and sharing learnings from hearings like this only supercharge our efforts.
The enabling statute for the advisory committee indicates that the committee must include, let me get this footnote, sorry. Representatives in community organizations representing health, social services, religious and human rights issues. What is the process you use for making sure that the committee includes representatives of those fields, health, social services, faith, and human rights organizations? How do you make sure your members touch those spaces?
I would say that to date, it has been largely sort of discussion based. We have, the members of our advisory are not shy. They speak up. They email. They pick up the phone and call. I think the current roster of our advisory was submitted, with our materials in preparation for this hearing, and so you can see yourself, the diverse representation that we have in terms of NGO leaders and business leaders and faith leaders and people that are not of faith. That's not unusual, in terms of, LGBTQ bodies that I have been a part of, or at least the attempt to make sure that they're reflective in those ways. Mm-hmm. And so we've just sort of kept to that, but it's been largely discussion based. And that's been a part of how we've had the success that we've had thus far.
I appreciate it. The pre-hearing responses didn't include the organizations that people are affiliated with. So that's one of the reasons I asked for clarification. So it might be helpful if you take a look at that, what was submitted, and sort of identify the organizations that people are affiliated with.
Yeah, we can do that maybe, perhaps. I mean, I think some people, are sort of serving in their personal capacity. And so they don't necessarily want to list their organizational affiliation, but for the people that opt to do that, I'm sure we can go back and provide that clarity.
I appreciate it. From an oversight response perspective, we want to make sure sort of the committee meets the statutory requirement. So that would be helpful.
And Councilmember could and Chair, do you mind if I pop in here? The Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs has been tasked to staff this advisory committee, and to us, that means providing them tools to succeed. One of the tools that we are very near finishing is a survey that we would be giving to all of our advisory committee members. The survey would be asking very similar questions to which ward do you live in? How do you identify in terms of sexual orientation? I know there was a policy recommendation to ensure that a person who is having who is polyamorous or is on the board. In addition to collecting this data, I frankly did not appoint any of these folks or help get these folks appointed. So I'm still in the learning stage of who these folks are, what their skills, what their talents are. So for me, I need this survey to know who these folks are and where I can better plug them in. So I will say, I'm happy to share that information and better provide what you're looking for in terms of board composition with the advisory committee.
I appreciate that. What's the timeline for the that survey?
Yeah, so I don't want to make any. We're sending it out today and or tomorrow. Right. We had our first, as the chair mentioned, we had our first advisory committee meeting, and we agreed to have more than 4 meetings a year, but to have 6 meetings a year. It is in our strategy to, in between those times, have committees, which was mentioned in our testimony. Committees for workforce, committees for housing, committees for public safety to better partner with our office on the initiatives that we already have, but to think outside the box. Our staff, we will have 4 FTEs or 4 folks in our office. And we are lucky because we are one of the only offices that has such a large advisory committee. We have 25 folks. And I will also say to fill those seats, it has been a great opportunity to work with the Mayor's Office of Talent to better make sure we hit all of our demographics and voices that we are hoping to add to the advisory committee. And we're in the process of interviews, and I'm very excited to hopefully have the remaining seats filled within this quarter, if not sooner.
Thank you. Speaking of the meetings from last year, it does look, Dr. Corte, like you had a pretty strong turnout from members last year. And based on last night's meeting, what's your general sense of members' engagement and availability level these days?
I think especially following the holidays, I think, engagement is high. Obviously, there was a transition period between the leadership of Sheila Alexander Reed and Japper Bowles. And I think during that transition period, Japper and I were able to meet and to get to understand each other's priority. I was able to get him up to speed in terms of some of the latest with the advisory committee, and we're able to send out some communications to the advisory committee to get things going. And so I think if last night's meeting is any indication, we're on the right track. I think engagement of the advisory is high, and we have our sights set on that engagement getting even higher Again, a number of advisory board members were not shy about sharing, how they hope to engage more deeply and, what their vision was for our work in the coming year. We've been doing a really good job bringing interest and vision and skill set into alignment to serve the priorities of the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs.
I see that you're working with the Office of LGBTQ Affairs on recommendations on workforce and housing related to the LGBTQ community. Do you sort of have any of those preliminary recommendations developed, or is that like still in the early stages?
I would say they're in the early stages still, and just riffing off of what Jaffer just shared about this upcoming survey. I think in a lot of ways, the insights from that survey are going to be instructive to how our advisory committee can best service some of the goals of the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs. We are really pleased with some of the work that the office has been doing, especially related to some of the persistent challenges we see around LGBTQ homelessness. Some of the work that's been happening related to housing vouchers. Some of the issues that were raised with some of the participants of this hearing earlier around ensuring that we are taking a look at the age cap, the minimum age requirement for LGBTQ seniors that may be working to obtain those vouchers, or folks older adults living with HIV. And so these are all tidbits of feedback. These are all insights that we take seriously, but we don't want to address them in a one-off way. We want to streamline it so we're maximizing, our time and energy as an advisory, and maximizing the time and energy of our FTEs in the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs.
When you finalize the recommendations, can you share them with the committee?
Absolutely.
Thank you. From last June to last night, looks like there was a gap in the advisory committee's meeting schedule of about 7 months. And I think the Office of LGBTQ Affairs, the mayor, and the committee might have benefited from your members' input last fall during the Delta wave and October Pride events, but certainly I also recognize that there was a leadership transition in the office. Are you confident that members of the advisory committee are ready for monthly meetings plus subcommittee meetings, or I think Director Bowles might have mentioned maybe quarterly meetings? What's the meeting schedule going to look like going forward?
Yeah, I've never been more confident. I've never been more confident in the energy and the level of engagement for members of the advisory. This is purely volunteer, and there's a lot swirling as we continue to find our way through this pandemic, and so I remain not just impressed but confident in the work ahead. We had a discussion yesterday as an advisory about a change to the meeting schedule, recognizing that our meeting schedule was a little bit off towards the final part of last year, largely related to just sort of staffing transitions and folks getting up to speed. There was no shortage of communication. There just wasn't sort of official advisory. We had thought about doing a meeting in mid-December, but as some of us don't want to have meetings for the sake of having meetings, right? And especially around the holidays, and so we kicked that December meeting into January. Hence why we had the meeting yesterday, and hence why we had a really good turnout for that meeting. And so we will be meeting on a bi-monthly schedule. Every other month we'll be meeting moving forward. And in between those meeting times, there will be sort of subcommittees that will meet. keep that work churning. This was a meeting schedule that we voted on, and there was nobody opposed it, and nobody abstained. And so it's not just my confidence, but I'm glad to sort of represent the confidence of the advisory in next steps in terms of meeting schedule and enthusiasm.
Okay, that's good to hear. What about, could you elaborate a bit on the advisory committee's work with DC Health and also with the Department of Aging and Community Living and Department of Human Services? And yet your pre-hearing questions, you mentioned you'd be and are working with these agencies. What does that work look like, or what will it look like going forward?
Sure. So I'll take the first half of this question and defer to Japper on the latter part of this question. And just want to remind, you and all the folks who are streaming in, is that, really it's the mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs that is engaging day to day with other agencies. Certainly representatives of those agencies are invited to attend our advisory meetings, to provide, sort of public comment during our advisory meetings. Of course, there are presentations that we add to our agenda. We have a practice of inviting different agency leads to come and talk to us about various issues that are of importance to our LGBTQ community here in the district. And so that practice will continue. We've had folks come in from workforce. We've had folks come in from housing in meetings past. We plan to continue that practice, but I'm going to defer to Japper, who I think can share a little bit more deeply in terms of the day-to-day engagement they've had with some of the agency leads. Japper?
Yeah, thank you. Obviously those agencies that you referenced are amongst our most connected agencies, ones that we frequently work with. I think the answer to that question more so comes with collaborative events that we've had. So looking at World AIDS Day, ensuring that our advisory committee is there and able to engage. World AIDS Day in December, we had partners not just from HOSTA, but also from DHS as well as from DACL. And then additionally providing, that advice. DACL does have an LGBTQ coordinator as well as their own advisory board. So making sure that our advisory committee members are also meeting and discussing and working with that advisory committee member. I think, that's what we're talking about with DACL. The other agency, DHS, we are, a lot of agencies, as you know, come to us with LGBTQ programming. And one of the things that our office does is advise on the grant making process and or serve as a person who, forget the word, sorry, is is a part of the grant making, not board, group, organization, sorry. So are making sure that our advisory committee members can also fill in for us and provide that culturally competent viewpoint and stance is absolutely something we're looking to do more so in the future. So those are just a few of the things in the interactions. To the chairman's point of having the advisory committee meet directly with DC government agencies and hear about what they're doing, I would continue to push that, especially specifically for our workforce and our housing and our public safety subcommittees. I absolutely plan on having all of these subcommittees working directly with WIC or DOES or with DCHA and DHS, and working with our VPART team, which is our violence prevention and response team, as well as the other different public safety and community safety cluster agencies. So the subcommittee is what our vessel to continue to have engagement with DC government, and then also acting as an advisor for grantees that are LGBTQ related.
Okay, just to understand the basis of the question, the pre-hearing questions that we got from the advisory committee, response to number 20 says advisory committee members have collaborated with the Department of Health, Serve DC, Department of Aging and Community Living, Department of Human Services, and the Mayor's Office of Asian and Pacific Islander Affairs. So I was trying to get a sense of sort of where advisory committee members had collaborated with those agencies.
And a lot of the time, I will say, volunteers from the advisory committee would be able to help support those events. So like the Asian and Pacific Islanders office, we're hoping to be more active in the Lunar New Year parade that is upcoming in February. However, obviously we'll be highlighting our LGBTQ voices there still, no matter it being virtual or in person, but just making sure that, if there's events, I want to better understand what our advisory committee members can do, what skills they have, what their background is, so I can better plug them in to these different agencies so we can make work in progress and get more resources and voice for our LGBTQ plus community.
Yeah, and can I also just add, and I'm not sure if if Japper mentioned this, Director Bowles, if he mentioned this, but the LGBTQ hate bias team, that's one area where some of our advisory members have had an interest and have a continued interest in engaging in that sort of interagency body that's sort of trading notes around some of the hate crimes that are happening, unfortunately, in the district. And so, we're trying to do our best to, address, the needs that exist, while also not burning out our advisory committee meetings, committee members. There's a lot of enthusiasm, and there's, we could fan everybody out across DC government and wear them out before the end of spring, right? And so, it's a balancing act, and again, if the enthusiasm at last night's meeting is any indication, we're off to a good start. But we just want to be good stewards of that, and also make sure that we're addressing any sort of gaps in terms of engagement with our agency partners as much as we can.
So I always like to see independent advisory bodies have a strong working relationship with their full-time agencies. Of course, and I raise this every year, I want to make sure you're empowered to challenge the agency and the executive and the council if your community isn't getting what they need. So how do you resolve differences with the Office of the Mayor or the Office of LGBTQ Affairs?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And the one example that comes to mind, I know that one of the persistent issues has been around funding. As has been shared in my testimony, in Director Bowles' testimony, and has been referenced by some other folks that you've spoken with today, the community is very pleased with the investment, over $4 million that's been invested in the LGBTQ community by this current administration. Of course, there are more worthy investments that the Budget Coalition, among others, are keeping an eye on and advocating for, as they should. But we didn't get there overnight. So there were a number of meetings and exchanges that we had even prior to Director Bowles taking on his role. Meetings that we had with Sheila Alexander Reed, and communications that were sent through her to the mayor's office, advocating. Years later, here we are, with a pretty significant investment, at an opportune time to really supercharge efforts to address needs in the community. And so that's an example, council member. That's an example that comes to mind where, I'm not sure if we saw the same sense of urgency in real time, but over time, we have come into alignment, and we're very pleased with what we're going to be able to do with that investment.
I appreciate it. Well, I do want to thank you both, Director Bowles and Dr. Corte, for the work that you all are doing during a particularly difficult time, and with big tasks, in front of you. So want to thank you all and your teams for everything you're doing, and thank you for being with us in our hearing today. These discussions are very, very important for moving our agencies forward, double checking our work and seeing what we need to do going forward. So I want to thank you all, and certainly want to thank all of the public witnesses who testified, and all those who have tuned in to watch this hearing. Those are all the questions I have. Dr. Corte, did you want to add something?
I just wanted to quickly just offer one more big thank you. You've heard me reference the enthusiasm by the Advisory Commission. And I just want to take a moment to thank everybody out that's been just so generous with their time, so generous with their resources, so generous with their insights, in an effort to really, meet the need, meet the demand of LGBTQ residents in the district. And so, big salute to everybody that is presently a part of the advisory, and folks that are formally a part of the advisory, the alumni of this advisory. It really takes all of us to move the needle. And so a big thank you to all of them.
Let me join that thanks, and I appreciate you giving them a very well-earned shout out. So for anyone who wishes to submit additional testimony, wasn't able to testify today, but wants to submit testimony for the record, written testimony is welcomed and encouraged and will be made part of the official record. Anyone who is interested may submit their testimony by email to the Committee on Government Operations and Facilities at facilities@dccouncil.us. The record for this hearing will close at the close of business on Wednesday, February 2nd. With that, the business before this committee is concluded. The time is now 3:59 p.m. and this performance oversight hearing of the committee is adjourned. Thank you both again.